Here's your latest news headlines with Will Hollis.
Thank you, Tom. Emily, at 3 minutes past 12, your top story. A rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics is on his way back to prison. Jake Fari killed schoolboy Jimmy Mizzen and in 2008 was sentenced to 14 years in jail. The probation service says Fari has been recalled for breaching his licence conditions. Part of the rapper's parole agreement includes being barred from entering Greenwich Borough of London, but in music videos found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victim's family, Fari, who goes by the alias 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf inside the area. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy said the BBC should reflect on the decision to showcase the drill rapper who was promoted on their One Extra radio station. Well, speaking yesterday on GB News, Margaret Mizzen.
It's absolutely beyond disgraceful. I can't believe that the BBC would do this. Now, I know that at the moment they're saying, well, they didn't know who he was, etc. But there must be ways of looking at these things. You know, perhaps people show their passports with a name or something, but they're making excuses. There's no excuses. They played his music, and you're playing the music of someone who's committed murder.
A defence and security deal with Poland will bring closer collaboration between the UK and its eastern ally. The Prime Minister continues his visit to Europe, promising to take Britain's partnership with Poland to the next level. Meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the pair are expected to discuss how the countries can combat people smuggling gangs and Russian aggression. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer signed a 100-year deal with Ukraine while visiting the war-torn country. In other news, the FTSE 100 has hit a new record high as traders bet on a cut to interest rates. Buoyed on by lowering inflation and declining retail sales, the FTSE 100 jumped to 8,492.06. Meanwhile, Chancellor Rachel Reeves has insisted she is here for the long haul in a fight back following criticism of her response to financial market turbulence. Sir Ed Davey has welcomed the government's announcement for a series of local inquiries into the grooming scandal. The Home Secretary announced government-backed local reviews in 5 areas yesterday, stopping short of committing to a full-scale national inquiry. The Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed, said action is needed more quickly.
If we're going to be tough, yeah, let's have the inquiry. Just as you say, you're quite right about that. But I don't think we should let the government get away with not taking the action now. We need to take the action now. And I think that's what Liberal Democrats would urge the government and all opposition parties. And I'm sure you would agree, we do need action now.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed a deal to return Hamas-held hostages. That's despite last-minute efforts by some cabinet ministers to stop the ceasefire. Later today, Israel's security ministers will convene to approve the deal. Back here, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has said her party would consider means testing the pension's triple lock during an interview on LBC. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride previously described the system, which was brought in by his party in 2011, as unsustainable. The leader of the opposition is being called on to urgently clarify her comments. Well, earlier GB News spoke to the Tory co-chairman Nigel Huddleston.
Triple lock is a Conservative Party policy and it's something we're very proud of and will continue as a point of principle to look after pensioners. But what Kemi announced yesterday, of course, was our approach going forward. And what we have said is that we're not going to announce lots and lots of policies and lots of popular things just for the sake of doing so. We want to make sure that we have a very, very clear policy platform with a plan.
Retail sales fell by 0.3% in December. That's despite the Christmas season. The latest retail figures, which are used to help showcase how high streets are performing, were released by the Office for National Statistics this morning. Previous figures for November were seen as shaky when sales rose by just 0.1%. Sales still remain 2.5% lower than pre-pandemic levels. The consumer watchdog Which has announced the very best and worst energy firms as chosen by customers in its annual survey. Octopus Energy, Utility Warehouse and 100 Green came out on top, whereas British Gas and Scottish Power failed to impress, scoring the lowest of 16 providers as voted for by 12,000 people. And your last story for now, Oscar-nominated actress Dame Joan Plowright has died aged 95. Known for her Golden Globe award-winning performances in TV biopics Stalin and Enchanted April, she was also nominated for an Academy Award. At 10 minutes past 12, those are your latest headlines. I'll be back in a short while.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is now 9 minutes past midday, and police forces have been encouraged to reopen cold grooming gang cases following 5 new local inquiries being announced yesterday.
Yes, the Home Secretary confirmed that new measures were being put in place to combat the criminal activity, with the government promising to give justice to the forgotten victims.
Effective local inquiries can delve into far more local detail and deliver more locally relevant answers and change than a lengthy nationwide inquiry can provide. So Tom Crowther, KC, chair of the Telford inquiry, has agreed to work with the government to develop a new framework for victim-centred, locally led inquiries where they are needed, and as a first step, to work with Oldham Council and up to 4 other pilot areas.
Well, while the Home Secretary was announcing that in the House of Commons, there was another question and answer session the other side of London, at the London Assembly. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, was asked if he knew of any grooming gang activity in London.
I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
To avoid any misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Well, there you go. Sadiq Khan avoiding that one. I wonder why. Should we ask Charlie Peters, who's in the studio with us?
Yeah, so that clip was sent to us by the London Assembly Tories yesterday because they've been quite exasperated over this issue, I think, in the capital. Our research has found good evidence, compelling testimony of grooming gang activity in London. It's clear that the Met is quite a significant child sexual exploitation team, and some survivors I've spoken to from around the country say that as part of their abuse, they were trafficked to the capital, and I have no good reason to doubt that testimony. Many of these survivors having compelling criminal cases put forward against their perpetrators. So clearly there is a problem in this town, where we are now, with on-street grooming, as there is with every single major town and city in the United Kingdom. As we've heard from David Greenwood from Switalski's, the solicitors in Sheffield, he's told Chopper on the political podcast that today. So it is a big issue, and it's not ideal, I think, for Sadiq Khan and his team, Sir Sadiq, to be saying, oh, can you define what a grooming gang is during that Q&A, when perhaps he could have said a more straightforward answer, we're concerned about child sexual exploitation in London. But to try and push her into a corner of asking her to define it looks as though, some Tories told me, he was dodging the question, but also possibly trying to make a political point out of the question.
I mean, it's strange, isn't it, given that this story has dominated the news for the last 2 weeks, that there have been statements about it from the Prime Minister, from the Home Secretary, that, I mean, you'd have to assume that Sir Sadiq has not picked up a newspaper, has not listened to the news, has not watched a single television news channel, and has lived under a rock.
He was gaslighting her, wasn't he? Pretending to not know what she was talking about. What do you mean by grooming gangs? Yes, as if the word has never popped into, expression in London.
And we heard there Susan Hall saying, you know precisely what I mean, as part of her response. One commentator told me yesterday that they felt as though Sadiq Khan's reaction was an attempt to force Susan Hall to say Muslim or force her to say Pakistani, which he could then latch onto to create a political point. But of course she didn't do that. She didn't respond in that way. She kept saying, you know what I mean, are you seriously saying you don't know what a grooming gang is? So a really, I'd say, quite a disappointing exchange, actually, in the Assembly. And survivors in London watching on at that will be, I imagine, quite concerned about that sort of political discussion taking place on this issue rather than a unified approach or people, extending olive branches over this issue, as we have seen a bit of going on in the Commons to try and get some form of investigation here.
OK, you mentioned the Commons. Just quickly, let's circle back to what Yvette Cooper announced yesterday. We're expecting 5 new local inquiries. Do we know where they are and how much money is being devoted to this?
£5 million, so £1 million per pilot scheme. And pilot scheme is an important line because it suggests there could be further investigations down the line, perhaps after this rapid 3-month audit by Baroness Casey exposes an extent of the problem. Labour may be forced, the government may be forced to look into other areas. But we only know one so far, which is Oldham. And that is the town that really sparked the resurgence of this scandal when we revealed on New Year's Day that Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister, had rejected an inquiry into that town. But what I'm hearing from survivors now is that there are 4 other areas that are going to get this inquiry. They don't know which area that's going to be. And there's this sense of nervousness around many survivors I've spoken to about, will they win the local review lottery? Will their town be picked? Will it be Bradford? Will it be Birmingham? Or will they look again at places where there have already been some sort of half investigations, such as Warwickshire or in St Helens or County Durham? A lot of people telling GB News over the last 24 hours, will we get a chance for our area to be assessed? And many saying, well, if we're not picked, then when will their investigations come to my town? Gangs have operated here for years. Bit of trouble there. Many saying that if the government was rushed into this announcement by virtue of all the media pressure, perhaps they could have lined up some areas to start with to reassure people what's going to happen next. The last thing people need is uncertainty on this.
Yeah, I mean, 5 to begin with seems a rather small number. Charlie Peters, thank you very much indeed. Shall we speak to Marilyn Hawes now, the Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse? Marilyn, interested to get your opinion on what Yvette Cooper announced yesterday. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it's a bit of a whitewash. I mean, they've done what I thought they would do, which is just skim over and get away with as little as they can possibly can, but make them look like they're doing anything. I just thought the other day, which is Nelson Mandela came out with a very good expression, which was, a country will be judged on how they treat their children. Well, we're not looking great, are we? I mean, you've only got to look. The public, 73% of the public wanted a full inquiry. 75% of the Asian population wanted inquiry. 75% of the Labour voters want an inquiry. If I was now a victim in any of these towns, the local councils actually didn't do anything to help me. So how am I going to actually trust them now? And I don't think the Labour Party want to uncover everything because so many of the councils were Labour. And I don't think they want to lose the Islamic vote. I'm sorry, but that's what I feel. The money is absolutely peanuts. This crime, I agree with David Greenwood, is across the UK. It's not just popular, famous towns and it's in villages as well. It's everywhere. It's along the seaside towns, the shores and the coastlines. It's just, people just don't see it for what it is. We need the transparency to be able to come back and have some faith in this country. I mean, we are talking about the rape of children. I mean, honestly, it can't get any worse, can it? Where children have actually been murdered by these brutal gangs, set on fire with petrol. I think the way that actually I would go as extreme as to say I think the Labour Party are acting like traitors. It's a shame we can't put them in the Tower of London.
I'm sure if Yvette Cooper were here, she'd say that these 5 inquiries are a starting point rather than an ending point. What do you make of the idea that we have these 5 pilot inquiries and that the scheme rolls out across the country further beyond that once they've seen to bear some fruit?
Well, yeah, if that's what she sees and that's what she is going to do, then that's fine. As you say, though, as Charlie said, who are these 5 going to be? But it's not mandatory, is it? I mean, Charlie actually said about, she mentioned Bradford and all of that. I mean, Bradford have said they don't want it. Bradford has said they don't want a local
and one of the issues is also that there's no it's not going to be, they're not going to have the statutory powers to force people to appear and give their statements. Marilyn, I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to leave it there because we're squeezed for time today. But Marilyn Hawes, Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse, thank you very much indeed for coming on, giving your perspective.
Now, the Prime Minister is off again. Yes, he's in Poland today, set to discuss a new defence agreement with Prime Minister Tusk. Well, aiming to kickstart new defence and security negotiations, all to tackle Vladimir Putin's aggression.
Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who is live in Warsaw. Catherine, a beautiful setting. What's been said?
Yes, good afternoon from a very chilly Warsaw. It was Ukraine yesterday, wasn't it, for the Prime Minister on this, his first foreign trip of 2025. Today, he's in Poland, and really it's the tale of two Donalds, because he will be meeting Donald Tusk. Remember him, he, of course, was the president of the European Council during those Brexit negotiations, and he is now Prime Minister of Poland. So Keir Starmer will be meeting with him, talking about increased military cooperation, of course, security uppermost in everybody's minds in Europe, with Ukraine, that promise yesterday of the 100-year plan for support, and the incoming President Donald Trump. As of Monday, president in the US will be for the second time, and what that means for Europe. So they're strengthening cooperation. They're talking about cracking down on the gangs, illegal migration, a big problem for Poland, stoked by Russia via Belarus. Also talking about growth, he will be meeting with business leaders. The government are touting a £600 million investment from a Polish company, InPost, into Britain. And but, you know, real concern in Europe about what Donald Trump is going to mean for Ukraine and European security as a whole, because, of course, he's been very clear that many European countries do not pay anything like their way as a percentage of defence spending as NATO members. He said he wants them to be spending 5%. We're currently at about 2.3. The government has said they have an ambition to get to 2.5. And of course, we've heard the potential for British troops maybe to be involved in peacekeeping forces in Ukraine after some sort of agreement is reached. So let's see. There's worrying noises coming out of military experts today that the British Army simply not well enough equipped to be able to deal with that.
Some big questions there for the Prime Minister, but Catherine, we'll let you get warm in a chilly Warsaw. And actually, just one question. What is the display? Why are there toadstools behind you there in the square in Warsaw? Is it a Christmas display?
I think it is, yes. You'll see, actually, there's a massive Christmas tree behind me. Apparently, because there's a lot of Orthodox Christians here, everything is celebrated a bit later. The decorations stay up, I'm told, for another week or two after we've taken all ours down.
I was wondering that all morning. Catherine, thank you so much for bringing that, and, of course, what the Prime Minister's up to. Speak to you a little bit later.
Fabulous red coat as well.
Oh, yeah.
Fits the scene
absolutely
perfectly. Yes, this is... it makes me want to go to Warsaw. I've never been to Poland.
Have you not?
No, I'll take a little trip. Why not? This is
Cheap
good...
beer.
I don't drink beer. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GBNews. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, a rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics. Well, he's been recalled to prison. We'll tell you why next.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
TikTok chefs, Instagram chefs, that they put children off or young people off of cooking because it's so expertly done that they can't do it. No, my young lad, he's 17, he is amazing in the kitchen. Oh, he is. He's amazing in the kitchen. And he gets it all off TikTok. He comes down, he can put burgers, wraps, stews, curries, sauces, and the smells in the kitchen. I said, where'd you get these? Oh, just TikTok, I'm trying it out. And it's just amazing the things that he can conjure up. So for some people, it might be It's an inspiration for him. So they're saying that's intimidation. For my boy, it's an inspiration. They say it's entertainment. For my boy, it's an infomercial. I watch him doing his stuff. At that stage, I could do baked beans on toast and knock up a salad. That was it. But my boy can do all sorts of stuff.
It makes it accessible as well, doesn't it? Because lots of people say, like, you need an education to be in the kitchen, or you need to go find yourself loads of cookbooks. But you don't.
No.
Just go on your phone now.
Well, I mean, like, all the spices, sesame oil. I mean, I'm amazed at the stuff that he does. So it's encouraging. All you just need is a kitchen well-stocked and have a go. And understand that failure is actually the route to learning. I mean, he's made mistakes, he's stuck stuff in the bin, but that young man, I am amazed at some of the stuff he does.
I don't mind cooking at all. It's cleaning up that I have the problem with. Dawn, let's talk about sex.
Can I just say there are things called restaurants, by the way? Just put that one. Oh, my hell, I don't even know where the kitchen is.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 12:25. Anyway, we can head now to Westminster, where our political editor, Christopher Hope, will bring us the latest news on the government's commitment to the triple lock on pensions. Apparently, I presume this is because of Kemi Badenoch's remarks.
Yes, a squall has broken out in the world of pension policy, with Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, saying last night to LBC, a phone-in, or hinting that she may look at means testing the pensions triple lock. She's now clarified her remarks, as you're seeing on screen now, saying that while Labour, Reform and Lib Dems pretending we're cancelling the triple lock, they're scared. And so it goes on. They're not looking at it. They do need to deliver a better means testing. I think she was talking about the issue of the winter fuel payment, but it was all wrapped up into a phone conversation with a voter last night on a radio show. Of course, that's allowed Labour to pile in. Number 10 this lunchtime, saying the PM is committed both to the triple lock and the principle, Number 10 says, of people receiving a state pension based on their contributions over a lifetime, regardless of wealth. Pressed on whether that commitment on triple lock was for now or for the entire Parliament until the election, the spokesman didn't answer. So I think it's all... we were warned by Kemi Badenoch when she became leader. She would be saying things which are kind of sometimes a bit out there, answering honestly questions, and they may cause, as I say, flare-ups in the press. But she's clarified now she's in favour of the triple lock, and not surprisingly, because the average age of Tory voters is over 65 at the last election. She can't be afford to be annoying them.
It's so lily-livered, isn't it? Privately, you have a pensions minister in Torsten Bell, he's the new pensions minister, who a few years ago wrote about how the triple lock is unsustainable, it's all going to implode in 10 years. Privately, the Tories say exactly the same thing. And then publicly, they're all singing the praises of the triple lock. Oh, we're going to keep the triple lock, we're going to gold plate it, we'll make it a quadruple, quintuple lock. When behind the scenes, they all admit that it's financially unsustainable.
Yeah, they all hate the triple lock, really, because it takes so much money.
Right. But, Chopper, there's much more to get through today.
Well, they haven't said...
Oh, go on.
Well, they haven't said that to me. I mean, I haven't heard that from Kemi Badenoch or Keir Starmer. I mean, I think in politics, pensioners vote, and that's why they get rewarded to an extent with this policy, which now both parties back. But yes, a big issue, I think, and it will carry on, and there'll be pressure on the triple lock going into the spending review later this year, I imagine. But as things stand, the government is committed to honouring it.
I'm afraid we've got very stretched for time, but I hear that there's been a bit of lurid conversation about beavers. What's going on?
Tom, not lurid at all. This is a beaver policy to release beavers. As Natural England has put in a bid to Number 10 to release beavers. There was a report in the Guardian newspaper saying that it's been delayed by Number 10 because beavers were seen as a Tory legacy scheme. Asked in the lobby briefing just now, the Number 10 denies that. They say we are considering the beaver release with Natural England. A Number 10 source tells reporters this lunchtime, we don't think beavers are Tories.
Well, that's good to know. I didn't realise
They Lib Dems?
that... I don't know if beavers have a particular... well, they build things, so they can't be Lib Dems. They build dams, and we all know the Lib Dems are very against
all right, so they give me so libertarians.
They are.
Christopher Hope, thank you very much indeed. We'll speak to you later, hopefully. Thank you. In other news, the rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics, well, he's been recalled to prison today for breaching his licence conditions. That's according to the probation service.
Yes, Jake Farry was killed... well, he killed the schoolboy Jimmy Mizzen in 2008 and was sentenced to 14 years in jail.
Yes, and part of the rapper's parole agreement included being barred from entering the Greenwich Borough of London. But in his music videos found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victim's family, Farry, who goes by the A-list 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf inside the area.
Presumably because 10 is his mental age. Well, let's see some of these lyrics now, but a warning that these following lines will be disturbing to some viewers.
Yeah, he talks about sharpen up my blade, I've got to keep those necessary, stay alert, and kept it ready, any corner could be deadly.
He continues, stuck it on a man and watched him melt like Ben & Jerry's.
OK, well, we're joined by retired police officer Norman Brennan. I mean, Norman, to begin with, minimum sentence of 14 years for a quite brutal murder of an innocent teenager. I mean, was that enough to begin with?
Well, most people would say not. I mean, 14 years is probably 1/6, 1/7 of an average life expectancy. So it's never, ever enough. But in 2009, rightly so, he was sentenced to life imprisonment and was given 14 years. That's the minimum you serve. He served that. Apparently, he did all the courses. But you can do all the courses you like, say all the right answers, and you're released. Whether it changes you or not is completely different. Well, in this particular case, it would be bad enough if these lyrics were said by anybody without any previous convictions. But you've got somebody now that has actually murdered somebody, and you would have thought that when they were released, they would look back at what they did and never try and provoke and incite or taunt via video messages other gangs, the types of person that he probably was when he was originally convicted. And here he is doing exactly that. And for the parents, I deal with hundreds of families of homicide. When they lose a child or a loved one, time stops. Life changes forever. So there's never a good day for them. But what do you think that the parents of Jimmy felt when they saw those words? Not only were they words in a lyric of drill and rap, which incites so many murders and stabbings and maimings, it was actually taunting basically them of what he did to their child. No wonder why they're upset, and rightly so.
And it's sickening that he's out walking the streets in his 30s, making this sort of content. I mean, 16 years to have served, and yet he's now been recalled to prison. Breaching these licences. You talk about courses that are done in prison. I mean, I put it to you, Norman Brennan, that these courses aren't worth the paper they're written on if as soon as someone's out, they go and talk about glorifying murder.
I completely agree, Tom. I mean, rehabilitation in prisons is close to none. And to be quite honest, I could be telling you now hundreds and hundreds of families where they have had a loved one murdered, and the offender has come out and re-offended. Some even go on to murder other people. And here we are talking, it wasn't 16 years he served, Tom, it was actually 14, a very low sentence. He's a young man. And if these young children and youths and young men that murder someone go to prison for a short period of time and see it no more than a respite before they come out and show their continued arrogant contempt to others, particularly the victims' families and society, well, it's clearly they're not going to prison for long enough.
Yeah, and of course this all blew up because the Sun newspaper found that his music was being played and even promoted by one DJ on BBC One Extra. So there you go. Norman Brennan, thank you very much indeed, retired police officer. Thank you.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come on today's programme, including what on earth are these politicians actually saying about the triple lock. That next.
Good afternoon, I'm Will Hollis with your top stories, and as you were just hearing, a rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics is on his way back to prison. Jake Fari killed schoolboy Jimmy Mizzen and, in 2008, was sentenced to 14 years in jail. The probation service says Fari has been recalled for breaching his licence conditions. Part of the rapper's parole agreement includes being barred from entering the Greenwich Borough of London, but in his music videos, found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victim's family, Fari, who goes by the rapper name 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf inside that area. Well, Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy said the BBC should reflect on the decision to showcase the drill rapper who was promoted on Radio 1 Extra. And yesterday, GB News spoke to Jimmy Mizzen's mother, Margaret.
I think it's absolutely beyond disgraceful. I can't believe that the BBC would do this. Now, I know that at the moment they're saying, well, they didn't know who he was, etc. But there must be ways of looking at these things. You know, perhaps people show their passports with a name or something, but they're making excuses. There's no excuses. They played his music, and you're playing the music of someone who's committed murder.
Farmers are descending on Britain's supermarkets today, raising awareness for Labour's plan to introduce inheritance tax. Tractors are lining car parks with farmers buying food and speaking with customers. The Chancellor announced the decision to tax farmers on assets worth £1 million in the October budget. Farmers have been protesting since. Earlier, GB News spoke to farmer Nigel Clark in Bridlington.
I feel sorry for anybody who's 70 or 80 and who's has planned for the future, but now all of a sudden the rug's pulled from under their feet. And also, it is going to catch, what is it, about 75% of farmers, because most farms, particularly in this area, will be worth well over £3 million.
To Europe, a defence and security deal with Poland will bring closer collaboration between the UK and its eastern ally. The Prime Minister continues his visit to Europe, promising to take Britain's partnership with Poland to the next level. Meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the pair are expected to discuss how the countries can combat people smuggling gangs and Russian aggression. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer signed a 100-year deal with Ukraine while visiting the war-torn country. And your last story for now. The FTSE 100 has hit a new record high as traders bet on a cut to interest rates. Buoyed on by lowering inflation and declining retail sales, the FTSE 100 jumped to 8,492.06. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Across some parts of Scotland today, there will be some rain and some strong winds, but for most, it's looking largely cloudy, but often dry. That's because we are still heavily under the influence of high pressure just to the southeast of us. The further away from this high you are, the greater chance you have of some unsettled weather. So yes, some outbreaks of rain pushing across parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too, and here it's going to be quite blustery, but elsewhere, a largely cloudy picture, limited sunnier breaks across perhaps parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe northern Scotland seeing some sunshine, but for most it's pretty cloudy. And a north-south split when it comes to temperatures. Cold towards the south. Further north, it's actually going to be pretty mild. For some, temperatures could just about get into the mid-teens Celsius, particularly where we have any breaks in the cloud towards the north-northeast of Scotland. We will keep with some breaks as we go through towards this evening, towards the far northeast, but it is also looking pretty cloudy, a bit wet and blustery still further west across parts of Scotland. Largely cloudy across parts of Northern Ireland and much of northern England, with a few breaks in the cloud perhaps. Staying mostly dry, just the odd spot of drizzly rain for more central southern parts of England and Wales, but staying cloudy as well. Lots more cloud to come as we go overnight. Some clearer skies, though, across northern parts of Scotland, and here it is likely to turn a bit chilly, perhaps a touch of frost, and even elsewhere across southern areas, because we have quite cold air across us at the moment. Even though we have that blanket of cloud, it is going to be a relatively cold night. There could be a few pockets of frost, perhaps, particularly over higher ground. Through tomorrow then, another cloudy start to the day for many, perhaps a greater chance of seeing some sunshine across parts of northern England, Wales, even into the southwest of England, seeing some sunshine, and further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland, some sunshine too. Otherwise, a lot of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain, and perhaps even a few snow grains in places, especially towards the southeast.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Antrim, the A1 is closed in both directions along Upper Lisbon Road at Finnegy after an accident causing queues. The M1 in Northamptonshire is partly blocked northbound by an accident between the Watford Gap services and junction 17 for the M45, causing queues for around a mile and a half. On the M5 in Worcestershire, there are northbound delays towards junction 6 at Worcester after an accident earlier. In Carmarthenshire, the A48 is closed each way between Portherreed and Llanfarog after an accident causing delays towards Carmarthen. In Montacunn and Taff, the Marder Mountain Road is blocked by a jackknifed lorry at Mardy, and in London, Grosvenor Place is closed southbound from Hyde Park Corner to the junction with Halkin Street for an investigation after an accident involving a bus causing delays. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20-1, and Kemi Badenoch confirmed that the Conservatives may be looking to backtrack on previous support for the pension triple lock as part of the new rebuilding programme.
Yes, so the Conservative leader said her party will begin means testing the policy, saying we've got to give something to the next generation. What are we leaving them with? I should say that I listened to the clip of Kemi, and it's not quite as clear-cut as that. It's not quite as clear-cut.
No.
Because she did say it did sound like she'd moved on to talking about means testing more generally.
Exactly, and
this always happens with Kemi Badenoch.
Right, the interviewer says something, but she's still on the previous thoughts.
Her sentences are too long.
But I mean, it was ambiguous enough that all of her political foes went to say that the Tories are going to cut the state pension. Kemi Badenoch was saying that means testing isn't good enough. We need to find a better way to means test things. Was she talking about the state pension? Wasn't she? Well, she's now clarified her view on the topic, stating on Twitter in the last hour that the Labour Party punished poor pensioners, snatching away their winter fuel payments due to poor means testing. We need better mechanisms, not proxies like pension credit or free school meals. So why are Labour, Reform and the Lib Dems pretending we're cancelling the triple lock?
It seems to me it's quite obvious that Kemi is, in theory, a small state Conservative. She'd like to slash quite a lot of this welfare, but very unpopular. Joining us now for more on this is pensions consultant Hilary Salt. I mean, Hilary, every now and then this question comes up, doesn't it? Whether they're going to stop the triple lock, whether it'll become a double one, a single one, whatever. What do you make of this latest intervention from Kemi Badenoch?
Well, it's clearly a developing news item in terms of what the Tories think. Perhaps I can be a bit more courageous and say that I think we do need to look at the triple lock. So just to remind everybody how we got here, the full glory of the current pension system introduced in 1978 had the earnings link, pensions linked to earnings. And then Mrs. Thatcher took away the earnings link, replaced it with the prices link in the early 1980s. And then the coalition government introduced the minimum of 2.5% of an increase. So you almost see a kind of political archaeology in the triple lock, but it really doesn't have any rational reasoning behind it. And personally, I think moving to back to an earnings link would make there more consistency between the increases in the standards of living or not of the working age population and the pensioner population. So personally, I think an earnings link is much more sensible.
I mean, you speak a lot of sense, Hilary. In fact, you sound like a lot of these politicians before they got into the roles in which they're now serving. I mean, I've been looking at what the pensions minister, a man called Torsten Bell, said before he was an MP. When he was running a think tank, he was saying that the triple lock is unsustainable. He said it was not a sensible mechanism. He said he would scrap it. Now he's pensions minister, he wants to keep it. And on the other side of the political spectrum, Mel Stride, now the Shadow Chancellor, before he was in that position, when he was a committee chair, not part of any front bench, he was saying that the pension triple lock is unsustainable. But now, as Shadow Chancellor, he's committed to the triple lock. Time and time again with these politicians, they say sensible things like what you're saying now, Hilary, when they're not on the front bench. And as soon as they get promoted, suddenly it seems that they get a lot more protective of these systems to maintain them as they've always existed.
And I think that's a wider issue, isn't it, where many of our politicians these days don't seem willing to have a kind of grown-up, sensible conversation with the population. It's just a kind of a Twitter storm or a very politicised discussion, rather than saying that, actually, you know, we live in a democratic society and we need to have grown-up conversations sometimes. And those will mean that there will be winners and losers. I mean, the Torsten Bell one is quite interesting because for a long time, he's been very much one of these people who really pushes the idea of intergenerational conflict. And he has certainly, you know, argued that one of the reasons why you might look at pensions is to redistribute some of the wealth to the younger generation. But, you know, my view is that if you're going to do something like take away the state pension, we're not talking about the triple lock now, you're going to look at the state pension itself. The best way to ensure that the future generation doesn't get it is to take it away from today's current pensioners. Actually, there's a lot of intergenerational solidarity and similar interests in maintaining a good state pension, but making sure we do talk about how we pay for it.
OK, well, Hilary Salt, pensions consultant, thank you very much indeed. What I will say is, Tom, there is already a lot of redistribution or distribution from the elderly to youngsters. I mean, a lot of the time, grandparents put money away for their grandchildren. They might even help them with a deposit. They might help with other things like, you know, money towards a trip or money towards home expenses or rent and things like this. It's not exactly like most pensioners are just sat there hoarding the money like little misers, right? And I must say, a lot of people are saying they'd like to see you live off £9,000 a year.
I don't think I'm going to get a state pension. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest.
You should say no to it. You should give it back if you ever do.
I don't think anyone born in my generation will get a state pension because we're getting older, we're having fewer babies. The dependency ratio, as it's known, the number of young people, because it's the people in work who pay for the pensions for the people who are out of work.
Yeah.
The numbers are just going in the wrong direction. I mean, the system is about to implode. I mean, the analysis done by the Adam Smith Institute is in about 10 years' time, the system collapses.
Yeah, I don't know what the perfect system is. I just note, and a lot of our viewers note, that it always seems to be the pensioners you want to take the money away from, rather than other wasteful public spending.
Oh, I think there's a lot of afuera. In the words of the Argentinian president.
I know, but you like to focus on the pensions or the winter fuel payments.
I bet.
And, you know, things for those really rich pensioners, even though really they're not that rich.
I bet we probably subsidise drill rap. I bet that the Department for Culture, Media and Sport has given some of my tax money to drill rappers. That would be a very easy thing to cut. Lisa Nandy, if you're listening, have a look at your balance
James
sheets.
has reminded you as well that we have one of the lowest pensions in Europe. Another argument that comes time and time
again. It's measured in slightly
again.
different ways. It's basically the middle of the pension. I'll get the numbers up the next time we discuss this. But I think that is a bit of a misnomer.
Yeah. I mean, and let us know at home, would you accept some kind of means testing of the state pension? Would you accept one of the locks being taken away? If so, which one? It's inflation 2.5 and average wage earnings.
That's right.
So, I don't know, let us know, gbnews.com/your say. If Tom is right that this thing is just not sustainable anymore, how would you improve it? But in other news, if you're in search of some winter sun to get out of here, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you or someone you know is looking for winter sun over the next few days, it will be breezy across much of the Med with some wet weather for Italy, but a lot of fine weather for Portugal and Spain, at least on Saturday. We're going to see sunny skies, a few drops of rain there for Gibraltar, but this system, named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is going to bring some very wet and windy weather through Sardinia, Sicily and much of Italy. That moves away through next week and it turns more unsettled in Spain.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as an upcycling consultant. I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a Dress the Nation, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop. You need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025, what can we expect fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollals and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 8 minutes to 1. And just a warning to those with children in the room about the content we're about to be addressing. Because Ofcom has announced that online users wanting to access pornography online will have to use a digital face ID in order to see explicit content.
Gosh, OK, well, the new age verification system will include photo ID matching, facial age estimation or credit card checks, OK?
So
now, Tom feels very strongly that this is a bad thing.
To put this in plain English, I'm going to say it, most men watch pornography. From this summer, if they want to do that in this country, they'll have to take a picture of themselves with their webcam to do that.
Yeah, well, I think...
That is a recipe for scammers, hackers and blackmail.
Well, I think we should go back to the old days where in order to look at any pornographic material, you had to ask the shopkeeper to get the magazine from up there, and then that was all you're getting.
Right,
now it's far too available. It's actually disgusting how available it is.
You're not going to
And it's no wonder that so many young men are, you know, not actually having relations with women, but just doing that
I'm
instead.
not worried for the young men. The young men are going to use what's known as a VPN. The young men are going to use what's known as a VPN, pretend their computer's in America and just access the American internet. I think that there is a
lot about
risk.
this sort of stuff.
I think there's a risk that for particularly older people, they'll be submitting photographs of themselves to prove that they're of age to porn websites.
Well, maybe they can rethink how they're spending their time.
Those people are going to be the victims of the biggest scams.
Get a copy of Nuts magazine,
There is
Zoom
going to be
magazine.
a horrific,
Look at a nice picture.
unintended set of consequences from this. It's going to be absolutely chilling.
Yeah, well,
and I don't think the government's
maybe it
woken up
might
to
help, you know, stop so many young children from looking at it. But yeah,
They're
I
gonna
do
watch it
agree
anyway.
it sounds
They're gonna
ridiculous.
watch it anyway.
I do agree it sounds ridiculous, but I do, you know, I think of the old days. I hark back to those days where just a magazine was enough. Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up. Yes, Triple Lock, lots of your views are coming in. You absolutely do not want it to go by the looks of things, but let us know. Perhaps you do.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Across some parts of Scotland today, there will be some rain and some strong winds, but for most, it's looking largely cloudy, but often dry. That's because we are still heavily under the influence of high pressure just to the southeast of us. The further away from this high you are, the greater chance you have of some unsettled weather. So yes, some outbreaks of rain pushing across parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too, and here it's going to be quite blustery, but elsewhere, a largely cloudy picture. Limited sunnier breaks across perhaps parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe northern Scotland seeing some sunshine, but for most it's pretty cloudy. And a north-south split when it comes to temperatures. Cold towards the south, further north it's actually going to be pretty mild. For some, temperatures could just about get into the mid-teens Celsius, particularly where we have any breaks in the cloud towards the north-northeast of Scotland. We will keep with some breaks as we go through towards this evening, towards the far northeast, but it is also looking pretty cloudy, a bit wet and blustery still further west across parts of Scotland. Largely cloudy across parts of Northern Ireland and much of northern England, with a few breaks in the cloud perhaps. Staying mostly dry, just the odd spot of drizzly rain for more central southern parts of England and Wales, but staying cloudy as well. Lots more cloud to come as we go overnight. Some clearer skies, though, across northern parts of Scotland, and here it is likely to turn a bit chilly, perhaps a touch of frost, and even elsewhere across southern areas, because we have quite cold air across us at the moment. Even though we have that blanket of cloud, it is going to be a relatively cold night. There could be a few pockets of frost, perhaps, particularly over higher ground. Through tomorrow then, another cloudy start to the day for many, perhaps a greater chance of seeing some sunshine across parts of northern England, Wales, even into the southwest of England, seeing some sunshine, and further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland, some sunshine too. Otherwise, a lot of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain, and perhaps even a few snow grains in places, especially towards the southeast.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic
£50,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it, it happens to people like me.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Estelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This was thought to be a Ruskin. Ruskin was a very considerable polymath, an artist as well as many other things. So do you know why it was submitted for reappraisal? Was there a bit of a suspicion that it had been misidentified?
No, as you say, it's a service that Christie's offer. You can submit an artwork that you have, so anyone can submit it and request an estimate, and then the auction house's appraisal service allows you space as well to describe it and ask for evaluation. And Christie's sort of looked at it behind the sheet of dirty old glass and recognised a sort of Turner-esque mood and feel and ambience about it. And because there was this close relationship between Ruskin and Turner, which is fascinating, we'll come on to that shortly, but they sort of felt, well, the brushstrokes are very strong, the line is very economic, and the colour of the palette seems to be rather Turner-esque. And then they called in a specialist paper historian who confirmed that actually the paper that was used was one that Turner favoured himself. So yes, it was originally considered to be by Ruskin, but then we discovered something more magnificent. And don't forget what's really interesting. Now it's for sale. The lucky buyer is not just buying a picture. The lucky buyer is buying a life story, a relationship that actually changed the course of art history because of the relationship between Ruskin and Turner themselves.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Friday, the 17th of January. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Well, the Home Secretary has announced a series of urgent local investigations into grooming gangs. But Yvette Cooper ignores calls.
It is never an excuse to use race and ethnicity or community relations as an excuse not to investigate and punish sex offenders.
But Yvette Cooper ignores calls for a full-blown national inquiry, despite the lawyer of many victims telling GB News the abuse gangs operate everywhere.
It's in every town and every city. Kids on the street are being exploited for sex.
And the Prime Minister, he's off abroad again, this time in Poland, to begin talks for a new bilateral agreement. But is Labour getting a little cosy with the European Union?
And farmers take their protests against the government's inheritance tax raid to a supermarket near you. We'll have the very latest.
Will indeed. Yeah, I want to know this hour why the farmers are protesting outside Morrison's, because Morrison's has come out and said they support.
I think maybe Morrison's is facilitating the protest.
Right.
Teaming up with the farmers, it would be my interpretation.
So how could they be facilitating it?
I don't know. So come here, we'll give you free food.
You could do your press here.
You could do a little picket in the...
Yeah.
in the car park together, you know.
We'll bring some snacks.
Yeah.
So a little hydrating
bring some
drinks.
of the eggs and milk that you provide us. I mean, really, it should be the farmers
what the
bringing
farmers
food.
want is the supermarkets to pay more for their goods, right? That's what they fundamentally want.
Well, also not to be taxed to high heaven.
That's from the government,
That would help too.
Yeah, so we'll be following the farmers' protests today. There was talk of them blockading supermarkets and the like.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem that they've gone that far. This is more just about raising awareness. This is just a protest in that respect.
But I think our farmers are a different breed of farmer compared to your common or garden European
They're British.
farmer. They're British. They respect the rule of law. They are one of the only groups of people who, when they go on protests, the streets after they march are cleaner than the streets before. They literally pick up litter as they march along the road. What other protest does that? The farming and agricultural protests in this country are the best of us, whereas in France they're more likely to just, dump manure everywhere.
Yeah, I like farmers. They're good stock.
Good people.
Hard-working, love the land, love the country usually quite patriotic.
And they're not just... The farm isn't just a business. It's also sort of... They act as custodians of the land.
Yeah, it's their home.
I mean, England didn't always look like those sort of rolling pastures of fields. I mean, a lot of England was just bogs and mess before agriculture came along. And it's thousands of years of careful stewardship of the land that makes the fields green. That means it's not just brambles, bushes, forests and bogs.
You know what I'm going to say next?
What?
You'll just concrete over the lot, wouldn't you?
No.
You just concrete over it, have your windmills over there, your solar farms over there, your nuclear power plants, and millions of high-rise flats.
No. In the cities would all have high-rise flats.
Yeah.
But I think we need more villages. I think we need... Roger Scruton talked about the Building Beautiful Commission, this idea of these villages built in
a real
vernacular.
loss to Britain.
Such a loss to Britain. But the real vernacular of sort of rural England, we need more little villages and towns that look like the towns as towns used to look like.
Yeah, I think I'd quite like to live in a village.
Yes.
Yeah, I've always been a city mouse. But perhaps my heart's in the countryside.
Wow.
Let us know what you make of it. gbnews.com/your say, and also keep your views coming in on the triple lock. What do you make of this suggestion that it could be means tested in the future?
Well, all to come after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, I'm Will Hollis. At 1:04, your top story. A rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics is on his way back to prison. Jake Fari killed schoolboy Jimmy Mizzen and in 2008 was sentenced to 14 years in jail. The probation service says Fari has been recalled for breaching his licence conditions. Part of the rapper's parole agreement includes being barred from entering Greenwich Borough of London, but in his music videos found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victims' families, Fari, who goes by the alias 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf inside the area. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy said the BBC should reflect on the decision to showcase the drill rapper who was promoted on their One Extra radio station. Well, yesterday on GB News, we spoke to Margaret Mizzen, Jimmy's mother.
It's absolutely beyond disgraceful. I can't believe that the BBC would do this. Now, I know that at the moment they're saying, well, they didn't know who he was, etc. But there must be ways of looking at these things. Perhaps people show their passports with a name or something, but they're making excuses. There's no excuses. They played his music, and you're playing the music of someone who's committed murder.
In other news, a defence and security deal with Poland will bring closer collaboration between the UK and its eastern ally. The Prime Minister continues his visit to Europe, promising to take Britain's partnership with Poland to the next level. Meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the pair are expected to discuss how the countries can combat people smuggling gangs and Russian aggression. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer signed a 100-year deal with Ukraine while visiting the war-torn country. Back here, though, farmers are descending on Britain's supermarkets today, raising awareness for Labour's plan to introduce inheritance tax. Tractors are lining car parks, with farmers buying food and speaking with customers too. The Chancellor announced the decision to tax farmers on assets worth £1 million in the October budget. Farmers have been protesting since. Well, earlier, GB News spoke to farmer Nigel Clark in Bridlington.
I feel sorry for anybody who's 70 or 80 and who's has planned for the future, but now all of a sudden the rug's pulled from under their feet. And also, it is going to catch, what is it, about 75% of farmers, because most farms, particularly in this area, will be worth well over £3 million.
A new record high for the FTSE 100 as traders bet on a cut to interest rates. Buoyed on by lowering inflation and declining retail sales, the FTSE 100 jumped to 8,492.06. Sir Ed Davey has welcomed the government's announcement for a series of local inquiries into the grooming scandal. The Home Secretary announced government-backed local reviews in 5 areas yesterday, stopping short of committing to a full-scale national inquiry. Well, Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed said action is needed more quickly.
If we're going to be tough, yeah, let's have the inquiry. Just as you say, you're quite right about that. But I don't think we should let the government get away with not taking the action now. We need to take the action now. And I think that's what Liberal Democrats would urge the government and all opposition parties. And I'm sure you would agree, we do need action now.
In the Middle East, Hamas is expected to release the first hostages under a Gaza ceasefire deal on Sunday, Israel's Prime Minister has said. Members of Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet have threatened to resign over the deal, but now Israel's security ministers are meeting to discuss, vote and potentially approve a ceasefire after 15 months of war. More than 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict, which started in October 2023, when Hamas-led militants killed 1,400 Israelis and took 200 people hostage. Consumer watchdog Which has announced the best and worst energy firms as chosen by customers in its annual survey. Octopus Energy, Utility Warehouse and 100 Green came out on top, whereas British Gas and Scottish Power failed to impress, scoring the lowest of 16 providers as voted for by 12,000 people. And your last story for now, Oscar-nominated actress Dame Joan Plowright has died, aged 95. Known for her Golden Globe award-winning performances in TV biopic Stalin and Enchanted April, she was also nominated for an Academy Award. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
OK, welcome back. It's 1:10 and Rachel Reeves has vowed she won't be brought down, fighting back against calls for her to resign over Labour's economic turmoil.
Yes, the Chancellor went on to say she did not take attacks on her personally and strongly believes she has what it takes and the ideas to turn things round.
But this comes as retail sales fell by 0.3% in December, despite that being the build-up to Christmas.
Yes, this is a real crucial point, that December should be the peak of retail sales of the year.
Yeah.
And instead they fell. So the question is Rachel Reeves up to the job?
Well, is she? Let's find out from chief political commentator at The Independent, John Rentoul. Now, John, last time we spoke, you seemed to want quite a few cabinet ministers to get the boot, but not Rachel Reeves.
But not Rachel Reeves, no. She's got to stay, because if she went, Keir Starmer's credibility would be absolutely devastated. So she's not going to go, and nor should she. I mean, you know, Mel Stride, her shadow, this, what was it, Tuesday, He was saying the question is whether she should stay or whether she should go. I mean, and then the next day, the inflation figures came out and they were lower than expected. And yes, you've managed to squeeze a reference into retail sales, which is disappointing. But your bulletin just then reported that the FTSE 100 is at a record high because businesses are confident about the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to be at a record high for the FTSE, which has been pretty flat. And you compare it to, the NASDAQ or the S&P 500. I mean,
you can't argue on the basis of 1 week's numbers that the Chancellor's got to go just because interest rates have gone up and the pound's gone down.
But we can look at the economic situation that this country is currently suffering under, and we can look at what the OBR published in their Blue Book alongside the budget, that long-term growth expectations over the course of this Parliament are lower after the budget than before the budget. This budget was meant to be about growth, and instead we got growth down, inflation up, interest rates up.
Tom, that is absolutely not right. The OBR forecast said that the effect of the budget would be to raise the level of growth.
No, John, we've read the same graphs. It has this sugar rush over year 1 and 2, but by year 3 and 4, the growth is lower than the previous forecasts.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But in the immediate term, it's going to be higher. So you should be pleased about that, and Rachel Reeves should stay in the job.
Should be pleased about that, Tom. John. How about her state of mind at the moment? Because she's saying, haters can hate, it doesn't bother me, I'm not bothered about what my critics say, all of this. But she releases these videos where she looks like she's, looks like a hostage video. She looks pretty down. She looks pretty down, John.
That's not fair. Were you watching Prime Minister's Questions on Wednesday? I was in the press gallery. I was watching her and other ministers as they got ready behind the Speaker's chair. She was full of chat and cheerfulness, patting people on the shoulder. I mean, obviously, she wanted to appear confident and in command, and she's done that in the interviews she's given since. But she's an extremely tough and resilient politician, and I've got no doubts that she'll be able to survive. I mean, yes, she has been a bit of a disappointment to many of her supporters in her first 6 months, but nothing that remotely justifies Keir Starmer moving her.
Now, one of the other big economic stories today is, of course, the issue of the triple lock. It seems to me that politicians are being incredibly duplicitous on both sides of the House of Commons over the course of the last 24 hours, each accusing each other of having the policy that secretly they would rather have themselves.
Very good point, Tom. I couldn't agree with you more. And having just been extremely rude about Mel Stride with his ridiculous opportunistic performance in the House on Tuesday, I have to give him credit for speaking the truth about the triple lock, which is that ultimately in the very long term it is unsustainable. And he had the guts to say that. I mean, it has been painful for him since, because it was used by Keir Starmer last week in PMQs against the Tory party. But it is only the truth.
And yet the Pensions Minister, Torsten Bell, appointed only this week, has said precisely the same thing as well. But the peculiar thing about these two men, Mel Stride and Torsten Bell, here he is, the new Pensions Minister, he's said that the triple lock is not sensible. He's said that the triple lock should be scrapped. He said that when he was chairman of the Resolution Foundation.
He changed his mind.
But now he's an MP. Now he's in the Treasury. He's not repeating it. And again, it happens with the Chancellor, with the Shadow Chancellor as well. When he was chairing a committee, he could tell the truth. And now he's on the front bench. He can't. I mean, this is why people hate politicians.
Yes, and this is one of the reasons why the Labour government is currently so unpopular, and why Rachel Reeves is so unpopular. It's because they wouldn't tell the truth about the public finances before the election. And this is, the triple lock is an example of that unsustainability of the public finances over the long run. And yes, I long for the day when a politician can say the sensible thing, which is that yes, we will support the triple lock for this Parliament, but after that, we're going to have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation about the triple lock today has been sparked by what Kemi Badenoch appeared to say on LBC. I just want to have a look at the clip, because I don't think it's as clear-cut as some are suggesting in the media.
Now, I'm not talking about being mean to pensioners and taking away their money, because I know we don't want to do that, but there are some people that get the pension or get the triple lock applied to it who do not need it. So shouldn't we look at that and perhaps using that money to help build more houses or help young people to become homeowners?
So that's exactly the sort of thing that the policy work we're going to be doing will look at. I have always said that we don't do means testing.
We're going to look at the triple lock.
I know we're going to look at means testing. Means testing is something which we don't do properly here.
It sounded as though, John, I think there, that she was talking about means testing in general of benefits. I think she'd already moved on to a sort of separate point, although the question was, of course, on the pension triple lock. But somehow her words are taken as meaning that.
No, well, earlier on in that question, I think there was a reference to the winter fuel payment and means testing it. And I think that's what Kemi Badenoch was talking about there. I completely agree with you. I think she's been misunderstood. I think it was absolutely clear, and we saw it from that clip, that she was not talking about doing anything about the triple lock. She was talking about means testing, and I think she was talking about means testing the winter fuel payment. I think she was saying, yes, it's wrong that millionaires should get the winter fuel payment, but Rachel Reeves went too far the other way and took it away from pensioners on, say, $12,000 a year who desperately need it. And all she's saying is it should have been means tested better.
Yeah, I mean, John, I know this happens to all politicians, but it seems to happen a lot to Kemi Badenoch, and I think it's because she sort of goes in all sorts of directions when she's answering a question. She goes from the practical to the theoretical, lofty ideas, and then back to but when she's been asked quite a pragmatic question, do you think she needs to change the way she communicates sometimes?
Well, I think it's down to inexperience. I mean, that's one of the things about today's politicians is that generally they haven't been in the House of Commons for as long as leaders of parties used to be. I mean, someone like Tony Blair, he was in the House of Commons for 9 years before he became leader of the party, and that training is absolutely essential in communicating clearly. And I think that's something that Kemi Badenoch has not yet got the hang of. I mean, she's quite interesting, but she's quite often not very clear and has to clarify what she meant.
But John, is this our fault in the media? We keep saying, oh, all of this spin, politicians talk in sound bites. They always repeat the same thing over and over again. Why can't a politician speak like a human being? And then one comes along who speaks like a human being and we go, why isn't she talking in sound bites? Why isn't she clearer? Why isn't she repeating the same phrases over and over again?
No, I mean, I think there's a happy medium, isn't there, where you can talk like a human being and make yourself clear at the same time. And obviously, I would say this, wouldn't I? Tony Blair was the absolute summit of the example of that. I mean, an absolutely a skilled communicator like we've never seen in politics before or since. But you don't have to be Tony Blair to be.
Do you miss him in power? Would you have him back?
Of course I do. Well, of course he should still be Prime Minister now. He'll be in a much better place. But that's
he's doing enough. He's done enough. John Rentoul, thank you very much indeed, a chief political commentator at The Independent. I should say a family member has just got in touch for a little fact check, saying the reason FTSE is up is because markets think there will be an interest rate cut because of weakness in the economy.
Yeah.
So it's not really a good thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Desperate, yeah. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it, really?
We're more likely to see the Bank of England take some of the brakes off the economy because the economy is doing so poorly. If you can't cry, you have to laugh, right? But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come. Indeed, we're going to catch up with the Prime Minister. He's in Poland today. Why on earth's that?
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Have you noticed that more and more stores are closing? Well, last year, apparently 13,000 stores closed for the last time on the high street.
Well, experts warn the worst is still to come for our small businesses.
Well, let's talk to retail expert Jeremy Baker. Good morning to you, Jeremy. How bad is it and what can be done?
Well, nothing can be done about it. Retail is like that. It's a boom and bust operation. So last year, let's say you had a shop and it was booming. This year, the consumer can just change their mind. They don't need to come back to your shop ever again.
Well, it is sad, Jeremy, because our high streets are the beating heart of our communities, aren't they? And for many people, I know I can relate to my high street, it is such a depressing sight, walking down there and seeing them all boarded up and closed down.
But how often do you walk down that boarded up high street? I think people move on to something else. The online world is very big, and lots of other things are very exciting. And so people, you know, the shop. I like to go to my GP in a shopping centre and get my tests done there rather than tramp off all the way to the GP, for example. And children could go to little schools in the high street. I've seen that happen already. So lots of things could happen to the high street. It could be much more social centre, much more kind of like pubs, coffee shops, all that. Charities. I don't see anything wrong with charities taking over, but the idea of the shop-centred high street finished, that's gone, never coming back. Goodbye. It's not sad, it's just life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 23 minutes past 1, and the Prime Minister is off again. He seems to spend more time on aeroplanes than in Britain at the moment, but he's in Poland today, set to discuss a new defence agreement with Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
You like saying Tusk, don't
Tusk.
you? Yes.
There's a strong sound.
It's a good name. Aiming to kickstart new defence and security negotiations to tackle Putin's aggression.
Well, joining us is our woman on the ground, Catherine Forster, live from Warsaw. Bit of a windy Warsaw today. What's the Prime Minister up to?
Windy and absolutely bitter, Tom and Emily. We're just outside the presidential palace. So the Prime Minister yesterday in Ukraine with Zelensky pledging support for 100 years. Today he is in Poland, just of course to the west of Ukraine, very much affected and very worried, of course, by what is going on in that country and what the incoming President Donald Trump may do about it when he comes to power next Monday. So today, Keir Starmer is meeting with another Donald Tusk. Of course, he used to be the president of the European Council, didn't he, through all those very tortuous Brexit years. But for the last couple of years, he's been Prime Minister here. So they're talking about increased military cooperation. We already work quite closely with Poland, but they want to see more of that. They're also trumpeting £600 million of new Polish money coming into the UK with a deal with a Polish company InPost. Talking about growth, something the government in desperate need of. Talking about security, of course, the Prime Minister's come in for a lot of criticism over his many foreign trips. But he would say it's about keeping Britain safe and about trying to drive jobs. So we will hear more, we will see more from a press conference a little bit later. But this is his first trip of 2025 at a time when Europe is increasingly not in a good place economically, and the governments of Germany and France have collapsed. So leadership in short supply here at the moment.
No, it certainly seems it's a testy time for world relations. But the question, I suppose, is what do all the other European countries think they're going to do when Donald Trump gets into office? We're only 3 days away from that point, and it seems that there's been an almost myopic sort of focus from whether it's 5% spending on defence or whether it's potential trade wars. Is there a unified European position on this?
Well, not entirely, no, because I was at the European Political Community meeting back in Hungary in November, just 2 days after Donald Trump won that election. Now, Viktor Orban, the leader in Hungary, is delighted that Donald Trump is coming back. He's a big supporter, but there is a lot of nervousness here in Poland and certainly in Western Europe, not just over Ukraine. Donald Trump no longer saying he's going to bring that conflict to an end in one day, but certainly saying within a few months. But on defence spending, he's been incredibly outspoken, hasn't he? Saying what we've known really for a long time, that a lot of European countries have been very happy to let the US have vast amounts of spending on defence while not really paying their way. So Donald Trump saying, look, you need to be spending 5%, everybody in Europe, as part of NATO on your defence. Of course, we're currently at about 2.3%, and all sorts of warnings about if we want to send British troops to a possible peacekeeping force in Ukraine, whether we really have the capacity.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed. Catherine Forster, live from Warsaw there. Speak to you in a little bit. Now, I know you don't think it's a big deal that Keir Starmer's not invited to the inauguration of Donald Trump, but a lot of other people have been invited.
Yes.
A lot of other foreign leaders have been invited. And now there's talk of Keir Starmer, well, he's going to have to use the royal family, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's going to have to
that's our great
use
asset.
our king, and anyone else to try and, ameliorate things.
Yes, although I think there is an argument that with Donald Trump, you don't want to seem too sycophantic.
Yeah, but he goes to every European country under the sun.
Look
He'd be more happy in, I don't know, Malta than the United States.
In 2017, when he first got in, there were two approaches taken from two European leaders. Theresa May ran across to Washington, D.C. as quickly as possible, became the first foreign leader to meet with Donald Trump. They held hands as they walked down the colonnades towards the Oval Office together.
Romantic.
Romantic? Did that relationship blossom? No. There's another approach.
Yeah, but they're very different people, aren't they?
That's true. But then there was the approach of Emmanuel Macron.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to meet Trump quickly. When they did meet, he wasn't sycophantic. He didn't say, Donald, how great you are. They did a firm handshake together, didn't they? They did the really firm thing. And he stood his ground. Donald Trump stood his ground. And I think that Donald Trump respects authority. I think Donald Trump respects leaders who know what they're going to say more than those that just run up and say, Donald, you're so great.
It might be nice to have an invite, though. I mean, he could have said, oh, sorry, I'm busy. Can't come, even though he spent more time on an airplane than any other Prime Minister, by the looks of things.
I'm not sure that there has been an invite to people like Giorgia Meloni.
Yeah.
I think she probably asked to come rather than...
Javier Milei's been invited.
OK, he probably did.
You've got the leader of El Salvador. You've got Hungary's leader.
He's built one of the biggest prisons in the world.
Going. Hungary's leader.
Yeah,
Japan's leader. Foreign Minister, to be fair.
Foreign Minister,
You've got a Brazilian going. You've got...
But Lula's not going. The president's not going. This is the point. Like, generally...
Vladimir Zelensky apparently hasn't yet received an invitation.
But generally, prime ministers don't go. I mean, Blair didn't go to any of Bush's inaugurations, even though the two men were very, very close. I don't think going to an inauguration means...
Donald Trump, do you think Donald Trump wants him there? No. That's my issue.
Oh, of course not.
I would have liked Donald Trump to have asked our Prime Minister to come, because it might be a good indicator of future relations.
Yeah, this wasn't going to happen in a million years,
And if you're all worried about these tariffs that might be coming our way from Donald Trump, it would be nice that if he saw us as special, I guess you can roll out King Charles.
I think it's better that there is a strong royal relationship because, I mean, with the best will in the world, this current government is never going to have the kind of chummy relationship with Donald Trump that perhaps
David Lammy, with that KK
Boris
sympathiser
Johnson might have. But I think we just have to be realpolitik about this.
OK. OK, well, what do you make of it? Do you think we've been snubbed? Do you think our Prime Minister has been snubbed? Or do you think it's not that big deal?
Or maybe because the next Prime Minister's going anyway. I say that slightly glibly, but...
What, Nigel Farage?
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to be the next Prime Minister?
I don't think he's going to be the next Prime Minister.
You don't?
No, I think I wouldn't rule out...
He's going to be Starmer round 2?
I wouldn't rule out Nigel Farage ever becoming Prime Minister. Looking at the polls now, anything could happen. But I still think the odds are longer than they are.
He's got a lot of time. Nigel's only 60.
It's true.
You know, look at in the States.
Nigel is actually younger than Keir Starmer.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah. He's younger than Keir Starmer. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, the farmers are back on their tractors protesting, this time outside supermarkets. Stick with us.
I'm Will Hollis at 1:30. Some breaking news. The Israeli Security Cabinet has recommended approving the Gaza ceasefire and hostage return deal ahead of a full cabinet meeting expected later today. That's a statement from the Prime Minister Netanyahu's office. Hamas is expected to release the first hostages under the Gaza ceasefire deal on Sunday. More than 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict, which started in October 2023 when Hamas-led militants killed 1,400 Israelis. A rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics is on his way back to prison. Jake Fari killed schoolboy Jimmy Mizzen and in 2008 was sentenced to 14 years in jail. The probation service says Fari has been recalled for breaching his licence conditions. Part of the rapper's parole agreement includes being barred from entering the borough of Greenwich in London. But in music videos found by the Sun newspaper, Fari, who goes by the alias 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf inside of the area. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy said the BBC should reflect on the decision to showcase the drill rapper who was promoted on their One Extra radio station. Well, yesterday, GB News spoke to Margaret Mizzen.
I think it's absolutely beyond disgraceful. I can't believe that the BBC would do this. Now, I know that at the moment they're saying, well, they didn't know who he was, etc. But there must be ways of looking at these things. You know, perhaps people show their passports with a name or something, but they're making excuses. There's no excuses. They played his music, and you're playing the music of someone who's committed murder.
In Europe, a defence and security deal with Poland will bring closer collaboration between the UK and its eastern ally. The Prime Minister continues his visit to Europe, promising to take Britain's partnership with Poland to the next level. Meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the pair are expected to discuss how the countries can combat people smuggling gangs and Russian aggression. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer signed a 100-year deal with Ukraine while visiting the war-torn country. Farmers are descending on Britain's supermarkets, raising awareness for Labour's plan to introduce inheritance tax. Tractors are lining car parks and farmers are buying food while speaking to customers. The Chancellor announced the decision to tax farmers on assets worth £1 million in the October budget. The FTSE 100 has hit a new record high as traders bet on a cut to interest rates. Buoyed on by lowering inflation and declining retail sales, the FTSE 100 jumped to 8,492.6. Rachel Reeves has insisted she is here for the long haul in a fight back following criticism of her response to financial market turbulence. Those are your latest headlines. We'll have more news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2190 and 1.1839 euros. The price of gold is £2,222 and 14 pence. And the FTSE 100 hitting records is at 8,508 points.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Across some parts of Scotland today, there will be some rain and some strong winds, but for most, it's looking largely cloudy, but often dry. That's because we are still heavily under the influence of high pressure just to the southeast of us. The further away from this high you are, the greater chance you have of some unsettled weather. So yes, some outbreaks of rain pushing across parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too, and here it's going to be quite blustery, but elsewhere, a largely cloudy picture. Limited sunnier breaks across perhaps parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe northern Scotland seeing some sunshine, but for most it's pretty cloudy. And a north-south split when it comes to temperatures. Cold towards the south, further north it's actually going to be pretty mild. For some, temperatures could just about get into the mid-teens Celsius, particularly where we have any breaks in the cloud towards the north-northeast of Scotland. We will keep with some breaks as we go through towards this evening, towards the far northeast, but it is also looking pretty cloudy, a bit wet and blustery still further west across parts of Scotland. Largely cloudy across parts of Northern Ireland and much of northern England, with a few breaks in the cloud perhaps. Staying mostly dry, just the odd spot of drizzly rain for more central southern parts of England and Wales, but staying cloudy as well. Lots more cloud to come as we go overnight. Some clearer skies though across northern parts of Scotland, and here it is likely to turn a bit chilly, perhaps a touch of frost, and even elsewhere across southern areas, because we have quite cold air across us at the moment. Even though we have that blanket of cloud, it is going to be a relatively cold night. There could be a few pockets of frost perhaps, particularly over higher ground. Through tomorrow then, another cloudy start to the day for many, perhaps a greater chance of seeing some sunshine across parts of northern England, Wales, even into the southwest of England, seeing some sunshine, and further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland, some sunshine too. Otherwise, a lot of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain, and perhaps even a few snow grains in places, especially towards the southeast.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Russell Holding. The A1 in Antrim is closed in both directions along Upper Lisbon Road at Finnegy after an accident causing queues. There's disruption to trains between Crewe and Stafford because of a signalling problem. Some trains diverting, buses replacing trains. In Leicestershire, the A5199 is closed each way between Wigston and Kilby after an accident. In Carmarthenshire, the A48 is closed in both directions between Portherreid and Llanfarog after an accident causing delays towards and away from Carmarthen. In Rhondda and Taff, the Mardy Mountain Road is blocked where a lorry is jackknifed at Mardy, causing queues. In London, Manchester Road on the Isle of Dogs is closed northbound towards Mudchute Park and Farm after an accident. And in Cornwall, the A374 is closed in both directions at Polbathic after an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 1, and farmers will once again take to towns and cities as they attempt to force the government to backtrack on their family farm tax changes.
Yes, farmers will park and protest outside supermarkets today and retailers to show how important they are to the supply chain and promote their cause to the public.
Well, let's get more on this now with our reporter, Anna Riley. Anna, take it away.
Good afternoon, Tom and Emily. Well, we're here in the car park of Aldi in Bridlington, but today farmers across the nation have been across many supermarkets getting that message across to customers about where their food comes from and trying to get the backing of supermarkets as well, because of course they wouldn't have the produce, wouldn't supermarkets, without the farmers like we've got here today. So we've been in Morrison's this morning, as well as Lidl and Tesco, and now we're here in Aldi. If I just step back as well, you can just see some of the signs that we've got here. So we can see the end is Kia for family farms is one, another one, Morrison's support us, do you? And here the sign reads, Rachel from accounts, you've got it wrong. And I'm here now with Tim Coleman. Tim, just tell us, you're a farmer, both livestock and arable. Why have you turned out today? Why is it important to you?
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, we're all here together. We've had a great turnout, up to 40 tractors of us. We're all here today to try and get our message across to the general public, I think, through the medium of the supermarket car parks, how angry we are really, and how we feel let down, and how we feel that the changes to the inheritance tax rules would be really unjust.
And this sort of campaigning started back in November, going to London, trying to get the government involved, and this is sort of the next step now, getting supermarkets involved, getting customers involved.
Yes, I think that's very true. We did. We made the journey to London, and since we've probably felt that we're not being listened to. And I think doing this in this way is a good way of keeping it in the public consciousness and getting our message across to say, you know, that this is, Rachel from accounts, you have got it wrong. It is really badly wrong and could be devastating to the industry.
What would the impact be on you and your farm with the inheritance tax?
Well, personally, and I know people stood next to me, we have not got our affairs in order overnight, and with bringing this law in so suddenly, if anything were to happen to us, it would be devastating to our family businesses.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for speaking to us. So that's the message here from farmers in Bridlington, and there's certainly more days of action planned by farmers next Saturday across the nation. More farmers gathering to spread that message that they want the Labour family farm tax to be repealed.
Well, Anna Riley, thank you very much for bringing us that. And what a splendid group of farmers you are with too. Lovely to see the tractor in the background. Always a pleasure.
And all the placards. Very varied, their messages.
Yeah. Well, shall we get more on this now with Alex Petropoulos, the political commentator with Young Voices UK. Alex, what do you make of this? Clearly, farmers feel like they're being really hard done by this government.
Yeah, I understand how they feel, but the way I see it is this is just them having to play under the same set of rules that everyone else does. And frankly, I don't have too much sympathy for farmers who are inheriting multi-million-pound inheritances, complaining that they're going to pay some, not even the full amount of tax that regular people pay, but some tax on it.
Yeah, but Alex, they're not going to have those farms for very long, are they? If they're taxed 20% every time the owner of that farm dies, I mean, you'll lose the farms in a matter of a generation or so.
Well, I disagree because, you know, they built up those farms in the first place. Those farms didn't come from nowhere. They didn't appear out of thin air. Many of these farmers built up and bought more land, and they were very smart with how they chose to spend their money. And there are lots of different financial instruments available to people. You know, you can sell parts of it. You can decide and find all sorts of different flexible ways to get around it. And, you know, the government has said you can spread out the payment over 10 years, it's interest-free. There are lots of tools at their disposal, but at the end of the day, it is a multi-million-pound inheritance by people who, you know, they didn't work for it.
Only if you sell it, Alex. Only if you sell it. And you're essentially asking these farmers who use their land for the benefit of all of us to sell their property to pay a death tax to the government. Don't you see the problem there?
Well, you don't necessarily have to sell it. There are different ways. You could sell part of it. You could go into an agreement with a bank. You could say, you know what, you will own a percentage of my farm, and maybe you get a percentage of my revenue, and we'll give you a bunch of money for that, and that will help you pay off this tax. You know, you've got a 10-year period to do it as well. It's not this black or white, you know, the government's going to seize your farm the instant you die. There's a wide range of options.
There seems to have been a political choice that has been made for generations that has been perhaps unmade in the last budget, and that is that there is something intrinsically of value to the country about having family-run farms that aren't, you know, the massive sort of hyper-efficient style farms you see in, you know, Australia or New Zealand or Canada, but that are sort of making a product that perhaps is less viable in an open market. And so we do provide tax incentives to maintain that sort of land custodianship, that tradition within our agricultural communities. Now, it's a perfectly legitimate political choice to say we should stop subsidising that. I mean, it'd be a more rational market if everyone was, you know, paying the same level of tax. But that is a political choice, and it doesn't seem like the government is being honest about whether or not that's the choice they've made.
Yes and no. I think, you know, there was that recent piece in the Financial Times saying, you know, Britain says it wants growth, but then acts like it doesn't want it. I think this is an example of Britain actually saying, yes, we do want growth, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to, you know, take the trade-off. And, you know, the trade-off, I think, isn't being portrayed fairly by the farmers. They're saying, oh, this is unfair to us. They have to tell the British people, the choice is we pay inheritance tax, or you pay more for your food because we're less efficient. Like you said, like those really efficient big companies, they will deliver cheaper food, cheaper groceries for British people that are, suffering under cost of living. So
well, you're only hastening their demise, Alex. You're only hastening their demise. But we've got to leave it there. Alex Petropoulos, political commentator with Young Voices. You put your point across. It's perhaps an unpopular one, but well done for putting it across nonetheless. I just think family farms are special. They should be treated in a special way in the tax system. Otherwise, they will just get smaller and smaller and smaller, and the future generations won't take up the trade. Then we're left with less and less food security. I mean, it seems a no-brainer to me. People don't just exist to pay tax. Farms don't just exist to pay tax to Rachel Reeves. I mean, ludicrous.
No,
I even wonder how much it will raise anyway.
Well, there's a big question mark over that. But there's much more to come on the programme today. And if you're in search of some of those places that we discussed that have perhaps these mega farms rather than smaller family farms, you might be in search of some European holiday destinations. There's some... That was a terrible, terrible segue. But here's your weather forecast for some of those European holiday destinations. Enjoy.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you or someone you know is looking for winter sun over the next few days, it will be breezy across much of the Med with some wet weather for Italy, but a lot of fine weather for Portugal and Spain, at least on Saturday. We're going to see sunny skies, a few drops of rain there for Gibraltar, but this system, named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is going to bring some very wet and windy weather through Sardinia, Sicily and much of Italy. That moves away through next week and it turns more unsettled in Spain.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out and then we ordered a Chinese. So I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. The fight went on, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out, first of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went and he turned around and he was like, we're going to need another sling. So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or GBNews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, it's Friday, isn't it?
It is. What does that mean?
Pints all around today. And at one very special pub in Shropshire, the Bailey Head, of course, has been crowned the Pub of the Year by the Campaign for Real Ale.
It's the first time they've been awarded this honour, and the owners, Duncan and Grace, couldn't be prouder.
I'd be well chuffed.
Absolutely.
If I was a pub landlord. We're now joined by...
I won't go into the anecdote, it's fine.
Well, maybe afterwards. We're joined by GB News West Midlands reporter Jack Carson, who's got the story. Jack, sometimes I think, I only see you in a pub, Jack.
Well, I feel like I've become the channel's unofficial pub correspondent. I'm not going to complain at that kind of title. I don't know what it is about the West Midlands, but for the last 3 years in a row, the best pub in the country, as judged by the Campaign for Real Ales, has been in my patch. You'll remember the last 2 years in a row, it's been the Tamworth Tap. This year in Oswestry in Shropshire, the Bailey Head has been awarded that coveted trophy. As you can see behind me, the crowd has gathered. The award presentation just starting now to award them that official title. The actual title itself is judged on a number of different things. It is decor, it is how good actually the beer tastes, but also the community spirit as well. This pub just 9 years ago, when this was taken over, had failed really under a major pub brand, and it's just been reignited into this community. Duncan and Grace, who are the landlord and landlady, have spoken to us today, and I don't know whether we can see a clip of them now.
I think we're both just stunned. I don't think we've had the chance to really feel like we're celebrating. I mean, we've known since the 22nd of December, and we've had to keep it quiet for a long time. We've managed to tip off some regulars, but both of us are just sort of, I think, walking around in a bit of a daze still.
It was a total shock to win. And yeah, it feels like a massive accolade to hard work and the support from our customers and our families and people who've made it happen. It's been a very hard 9 years in the pub industry with COVID, the energy crisis, all those things have had knock-ons on the licensed trade and on the brewing industry. So to be here today it's quite humbling.
We've tried to just build it as being a very inclusive place. I think from day one we said that we'd like to be a pub where a woman could come in and sit and have a drink in a corner by herself and read a book, or join in with other people and just feel comfortable without all the things that you get in a lot of pubs of loud sport and overpowering music and that sort of thing. It just needs to be a relaxed but enjoyable place to sit and have a drink and chat with people.
Yeah, serving pints to absolutely everybody. That is the point of a great British boozer, being able to bring a community together, and that is what, of course, this pub here, the Bailey Head in Shropshire, has been able to do. These pints here that are being served, many of them already today are tasting even that little bit sweeter, as, of course, you can see behind me, this presentation taking place for the Bailey Head in Shropshire, which is Britain's best boozer.
Fantastic stuff. Oh, and Jack, man of the people there, having a pint live on the television. That's what we need more of.
Oh, I hope that's 0-0, Jack.
It's a shandy, it's a shandy.
That's all right, you're allowed, it's Friday.
Well, I look forward to seeing you pop up later in the channel slurring a little bit more. But we'll catch up with you a bit later. Jack Carson, thanks very much. This is Good Afternoon Britain. Much more to come, not least. Are your pensions safe? That next.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Across some parts of Scotland today, there will be some rain and some strong winds, but for most, it's looking largely cloudy, but often dry. That's because we are still heavily under the influence of high pressure just to the southeast of us. The further away from this high you are, the greater chance you have of some unsettled weather. So yes, some outbreaks of rain pushing across parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too, and here it's going to be quite blustery, but elsewhere, a largely cloudy picture limited sunnier breaks across perhaps parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe northern Scotland seeing some sunshine, but for most it's pretty cloudy. And a north-south split when it comes to temperatures. Cold towards the south. Further north, it's actually going to be pretty mild. For some, temperatures could just about get into the mid-teens Celsius, particularly where we have any breaks in the cloud towards the north-northeast of Scotland. We will keep with some breaks as we go through towards this evening, towards the far northeast, but it is also looking pretty cloudy, a bit wet and blustery still further west across parts of Scotland. Largely cloudy across parts of Northern Ireland and much of northern England, with a few breaks in the cloud perhaps. Staying mostly dry, just the odd spot of drizzly rain for more central southern parts of England and Wales, but staying cloudy as well. Lots more cloud to come as we go overnight. Some clearer skies, though, across northern parts of Scotland, and here it is likely to turn a bit chilly, perhaps a touch of frost, and even elsewhere across southern areas, because we have quite cold air across us at the moment. Even though we have that blanket of cloud, it is going to be a relatively cold night. There could be a few pockets of frost, perhaps, particularly over higher ground. Through tomorrow then, another cloudy start to the day for many, perhaps a greater chance of seeing some sunshine across parts of northern England, Wales, even into the southwest of England, seeing some sunshine, and further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland, some sunshine too. Otherwise, a lot of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain, and perhaps even a few snow grains in places, especially towards the southeast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever. An incredible £50,000. That's tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this year. What would you spend it on? £50,000 could buy those treats you've always dreamed of having. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Friday, the 17th of January. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
The Home Secretary announces a series of urgent local investigations into grooming gangs.
It is never an excuse to use race and ethnicity or community relations as an excuse not to investigate and punish sex offenders.
Strong words, but Yvette Cooper ignores calls for a full-blown national inquiry, despite the lawyer of many victims telling GB News the abuse gangs operate everywhere.
It's in every town and every city. Kids on the street are being exploited for sex.
It gets serious here. The Prime Minister is again abroad in Poland this time to begin talks for a new bilateral agreement. But is Labour getting too cosy with the European Union?
And the killer rapper who spent 14 years in jail for the murder of schoolboy Jimmy Misen, well, he's been recalled to prison for breaching his licence conditions. We'll speak to a drill rapper next.
And Tory leader Kemi Badenoch finds herself in the eye of a pension storm. Could the triple lock be in jeopardy? But now, after the backlash, the Tory leader says it's all fake news.
Fake news.
You like that phrase?
Can I do the Trump impression?
Yeah,
fake news.
I always think, what's he doing when he dances?
Fake news.
Sort of
He goes
holds
like
his
this.
hands like that, and it's almost like he's holding some sort of, maybe a pulley system or something.
Yeah, it's a good one. You know?
Yeah?
Move the hips.
Do you think
move
it'll
the
catch
arms.
on?
Yeah, I think it already has.
Yeah,
I think it already
certainly-
has. You know, TikTok is live with all these videos of the dance routine.
This is true. And
Dance party like Beyonce, remember that?
oh, goodness me, I mean, whenever it's a...
Joe Biden's asleep. Kamala, she's at a dance party with Beyonce. And then he...
Oh, is that... I think right, and it turns into
Yeah.
a sort of hip-hop edit. My favourite one, though, is the Baron Trump. Have you heard this, the sound? Baron Trump, from when he was a child, and there was a documentary film crew in Trump Tower, and he's running around as sort of like a 4-year-old. He's just going, I like my suitcase. I like my suitcase.
Why is he saying that?
Because he's got a briefcase and he's going to school and he talks, I go to school now.
a briefcase to
and
the
he speaks with Melania's accent, which actually is a really interesting element because it shows how close they were, I guess, growing up, that sort of she didn't palm him off to some nanny or something. He speaks with a Slovenian accent or wherever it is.
Yeah, Melania was asked, wasn't she, in the media, if she's looking forward to returning to the White House and how she feels about it. She said, well, I know where the rooms are now, so it'll be easier. It's like, OK, that's what you've got to say about the matter.
Absolutely fantastic.
But yes, fake news. You could tell that Kemi Badenoch is, has a disdain for the press and the media, doesn't she, really?
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, it is an ambiguous enough clip from the radio last night. Was she saying that pensions should be means tested? Was she saying that the means testing system of the country overall should be reformed? I mean, different people will have different
I think
views
the
of what
latter.
she was saying.
But maybe if she was 100% truthful, she'd say scrap the pension triple up.
Yeah.
Let us know, gbnews.com/your say, but it's your headlines with Will Hollis.
Thanks, Emily. Tom, at 2 o'clock, the Israeli Security Cabinet has recommended approving the Gaza ceasefire and hostage return deal ahead of a full cabinet meeting expected later today. Hamas is expected to release the first hostages under a Gaza ceasefire deal on Sunday. That's according to Israel's Prime Minister. More than 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict, which started in October 2023 when Hamas-led militants killed 1,400 Israelis. A rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics is on his way back to prison. Jake Fari killed schoolboy Jimmy Misen and in 2008 was sentenced to 14 years in jail. The probation service says Fari has been recalled for breaching his licence conditions. Part of the rapper's parole agreement includes being barred from entering Greenwich Borough of London. But in music videos found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victim's family, Fari, who goes by the alias 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf, inside of the area. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy said the BBC should reflect on the decision to showcase the drill rapper, who was promoted on their One Extra radio station. And yesterday, GB News spoke to Margaret Misen.
I think it's absolutely beyond
disgraceful. I can't believe that the BBC would do this. Now, I know that at the moment they're saying, well, they didn't know who he was, etc. But there must be ways of looking at these things. You know, perhaps people show their passports with a name or something, but they're making excuses. There's no excuses. They played his music, and you're playing the music of someone who's committed murder.
A defence and security deal with Poland will bring closer collaboration between the UK and its eastern ally. The Prime Minister continues his visit to Europe, promising to take Britain's partnership with Poland to the next level. Meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the pair are expected to discuss how the countries can combat people smuggling gangs and Russian aggression. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer signed a 100-year deal with Ukraine while visiting the war-torn country. Well, back here, farmers are descending on Britain's supermarkets today, raising awareness for Labour's plan to introduce inheritance tax. Tractors are lining car parks, with farmers buying food and speaking to customers. The Chancellor announced the decision to tax farmers on assets worth more than £1 million in October. Farmers have been protesting since. The FTSE 100 has hit a new record high as traders bet on a cut on interest rates. Buoyed on by lowering inflation and declining retail sales, the FTSE 100 jumped to 8492.06. Rachel Reeves has insisted she is here for the long haul in a fight back following criticism of her response to financial market turbulence. Sir Ed Davey has welcomed the government's announcement for a series of local inquiries into the grooming scandal. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, announced government-backed local reviews in 5 areas yesterday, stopping short of committing to a full-scale national inquiry. The Liberal Democrat leader said action is needed more quickly.
If we're going to be tough, yeah, let's have the inquiry. Just as you say, you're quite right about that. But I don't think we should let the government get away with not taking the action now. We need to take the action now. And I think that's what Liberal Democrats would urge the government and all opposition parties. And I'm sure you would agree, we do need action now.
And your last story for now, the funeral of Radio 2 presenter Johnny Walker has taken place this morning. Alongside colleagues and musicians, including Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant and Jeremy Vine, family and friends said goodbye to the DJ. Walker died aged 79 in December, with his death being announced on New Year's Eve by Bob Harris after Bob took over from the veteran DJ's Sound of the 70s show in just November. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 2, and now some breaking news for you. And it could be a job saver for Rachel Reeves.
Yes, apparently the UK economy is on track for growth this year, despite missing initial forecasts in 2024.
That's good news. So, I mean, the good news is not a recession. I mean, it's a low bar, that, isn't it? Well, the International Monetary Fund claims that the country's GDP will grow by 1.6% in 2020. Just 1.6%. That's what we're meant to be celebrating. 1.6% growth. Really? Just 1.6%? It was meant to be 2% just last year. That was the OBR forecast, and now we're down to 1.6, and that's supposed to be. But that's always supposed to be singing manna from the heaven. 1.6.
Yeah, it's measly. It's measly. You know, in a normal country, that would be measly. We've got to celebrate 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. I mean, which really is within the margin of error. But 1.6%. OK, but what if the population goes up again? Dividing it by more people, so we're still probably getting poorer.
Yeah, it depends entirely on population growth with the per capita figures. But here's the really damning thing about the European Union. 1.6% is obviously miles behind the United States of America, miles behind all of the fast-growing parts of the world. but it's faster than Germany, France and Italy.
I don't know where they came up with this anyway.
It's faster than every large advanced European country, and it's pitiful. I mean, we're the tallest dwarf.
I don't trust these forecasts anyway. I don't know what this is based on. It can't be based on the last 6 months, can it? So what's it based on? What changes is it based on? What are they expecting? Well, for more on this, we can speak to the financial market analyst at City Index, Fiona Kincotter. Thank you very much indeed, Fiona. This forecast, I guess it's rosier than what we've had in the last few months in terms of growth. Do you believe it? What do you think it's based on?
Well, do you know, I think it does look a little bit optimistic from where we are now. So although we're saying it's measly growth, I mean, if we look at current figures, we've just had GDP data for the end of last year in, and we saw GDP grow just 0.1% in November. That was after 2 months of contraction. We've just had retail sales data in for December, which was weaker than expected. You know, I just think data that's coming in from the UK is pointing to a real lackluster economy, which is struggling. So the fact that they're expecting to see an upward revision to growth is interesting and optimistic, I think. There is optimism that potentially the Bank of England could be cutting interest rates a little bit more than we thought at the beginning of this week, but even that I don't think will be enough to spur such strong growth, or such an upward revision would be a better way of putting that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting forecast, but again, we need to, I think, always take these figures with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Obviously, let's remember, as you pointed out, the growth for the previous period was actually came in less than expected at 0.9 rather than the 1.1 that was forecast. So we just need to keep that in mind.
All of these organisations with acronyms for names can all sound very confusing, but the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, was predicting 2% growth this year. I imagine they'll revise that down when they make their fresh assessment in March. But the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, is saying 1.6. That's lower than what our own boffins are saying just out of the Treasury. I mean, it's hard to know who to trust. What does it look like in comparison to, you know, parts of the world that are actually experiencing a bit of a rosier picture economically?
Yeah, I mean, there is a big difference between sort of different organisations and their forecast. But I mean, that's something that we've always seen. You know, it's very rare for organisations to agree exactly. And that's because of the level of prediction that's going on here, and also the uncertainties, I think, that we need to take into account, on particularly this year with Trump entering the White House next week. That does bring with it a whole world of uncertainties for Europe, for the UK, for the global economy, depending on what policies he chooses to implement and how aggressively. But then if you compare us, to other areas of the globe, I mean, we had Chinese GDP data came in today, actually, and they saw above 5% growth. They saw their strongest growth for several quarters, in fact, for several years. So they're obviously seeing things much, much stronger than us. The US as well, we're seeing, you know, an economic resilience in the US economy that we're just not seeing here in the UK. But obviously then, as you pointed out, if we compare ourselves to areas such as Germany, which has really suffered with a manufacturing slowdown, political uncertainty, then we do appear to be a little bit in a brighter spot. But again, I think there we're just saying that we're sort of the better of a bad bunch.
Yeah, Mrs. Doyle, she's got in touch. She says we're the smallest dwarf. No, the tallest dwarf. The tallest dwarf. There we go. Yeah, I got that wrong. Gosh. Fiona, thank you very much indeed. Fiona Kincotter there, from a financial market analyst at City Index.
Right now, some more breaking news this hour. A man who attempted to murder an asylum seeker is currently being sentenced in court right now. Callum Parslow admitted to wounding and badly injuring a man in Worcester last year using a knife, claiming it was a form of protest over the way he was being treated by his landlord.
Yes, Mr. Parslow, who has links to white supremacy groups, said in response to the crime, "I just did my duty to England." OK, well, we'll bring you the result of the sentencing when we have it. But yes, this is going on at Woolwich Crown Court. The sentencing remarks can go on for a little while. So we'll bring you what that sentence is when we get it.
Back here in the studio, police forces have been encouraged to reopen cold grooming gang cases following 5 more local inquiries being announced by the Home Secretary.
Yeah, so she confirmed that new measures are being put in place to combat the criminal activity, with the government promising to give justice to the forgotten victims.
Effective local inquiries can delve into far more local detail and deliver more locally relevant answers and change than a lengthy nationwide inquiry can provide. So Tom Crowther, KC, chair of the Telford inquiry, has agreed to work with the government to develop a new framework for victim-centred, locally led inquiries where they are needed, and as a first step, to work with Oldham Council and up to 4 other pilot areas.
Well, let's get more on this now with our reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, what does it all mean? Where exactly is going to get a fresh inquiry?
They say 5 pilot areas. The only one we know is Oldham. Now, Oldham is at the heart of this recent surge in the scandal's attention when we revealed on New Year's Day that the Home Secretary and Jess Phillips, the Safeguarding Minister, had rejected a request from Oldham Council for a government-led inquiry. So Oldham will be one of these areas now getting a government-backed local review, which is different to what would have happened originally when they would just be told to do it themselves, with Jess Phillips saying in October that she believed it was for Oldham they would be best to do this. Now there's been a partial climb down in that position, with them now saying that this will be nationally resourced. But it won't have national powers. These reviews won't be able to summon witnesses under oath and compel them to give evidence. The other 4 areas, we still don't know where they will be. And the question now for a lot of survivors and campaigners is, are those 4 other areas going to be in locations where we haven't had reports of these grooming gangs? Because that's what's happened before when there have been inquiries. The ICSA areas were Warwickshire, St Helens, Durham, Bristol. None of those areas had a prosecution that fit the pattern of this form of group localised child sexual exploitation by predominantly Pakistani heritage gangs. We've heard from a solicitor, David Greenwood, today from Switolski's, a solicitor's based in Wakefield in West Yorkshire, saying that they're very concerned that this is happening in every town and city in the country, and there are potentially hundreds of thousands of victims. This really needs to be assessed properly. And he's also said today that he thinks that the abuse in Bradford in West Yorkshire would be even worse than what was revealed in the J report into Rotherham in 2014. He says that in all the cases he knows, and he's represented hundreds of survivors through his firm, many people were trafficked into Bradford. But still, Bradford's always resisted an inquiry. A key test for me, I'd say, looking at this and the national picture is, will the government launch one of those local reviews into Bradford? In a sense, some survivors don't want that, because what's the point in going there if you don't have the powers to compel witnesses and force people to give evidence?
Really important point there, Charlie Peters. Thanks so much for explaining that all for us.
OK, well, in other news, the Prime Minister is off again, this time in Poland. He's set to discuss a new defence agreement with Prime Minister Tusk.
Yes, aiming to kickstart new defence and security negotiations, all to tackle Putin's aggression, so we're told. So let's get the lowdown with Catherine Forster, our political correspondent, live in Warsaw. Catherine.
Yes, good afternoon. Well, we can now tell you that a little bit earlier, the Prime Minister took a visit to Auschwitz, that infamous Nazi concentration camp a couple of hours south of Warsaw. Poland was, of course, occupied by the Germans during World War II. And he's issued a statement. He was there with his wife, Lady Victoria. I'll just read you a tiny bit of it. He starts by saying, "Nothing could prepare me for the sheer horror of what I have seen in this place. It is utterly harrowing. The mounds of hair, the shoes, the suitcases, the names and details, everything that was so meticulously kept except for human life." You do hear, don't you, that people who go to Auschwitz, it does have a very profound effect upon them, and I suspect it will have really stressed to the Prime Minister the importance of the work that he is doing here in terms of security and our national security. You know, there's plenty of people that will criticise the government for the amount of money it has given to support Ukraine, but the Prime Minister believes that this is not just about supporting Ukraine, that this is about our freedom and that Ukraine is fighting effectively for all of us. So he was in Ukraine yesterday. of course, meeting with President Zelensky while a Russian drone was shot down overhead. Today, he's in Poland and he's meeting with the Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who, of course, was the president of the European Council back with during the Brexit negotiations. Now, they're talking about increased defence cooperation. Their militaries already work together. They want to increase that. They want to work also on smashing the gangs, a phrase that the PM likes to use. Poland has a big problem with illegal migration, often coming helped and stoked by Russia across via Belarus. That's something they're also focusing on. And growth. So he will be meeting the president. He will be meeting Donald Tusk, the PM. He'll also be meeting business leaders, and they're announcing 600 million of new investment from a Polish company into the UK.
Well, Catherine Forster, thank you very much for bringing us that poignant visit to Auschwitz, just a week or two away from the anniversary of its liberation.
But now to some more breaking news this hour. The man who attempted to murder an asylum seeker has now had his sentence confirmed at Woolwich Crown Court. Callum Parslow, he's been sentenced to life with a minimum term of 22 years and 8 months in prison. Now, this is for attempted murder after stabbing an asylum seeker in the chest at a Worcestershire hotel.
Well, there we are. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come on today's programme. Indeed, more discussion of stabbing. Yes, we'll be speaking to a drill rapper after controversy around that genre of music. That's next.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Tell us about the backlash situation, first of all.
Yeah, so the Duke and Duchess of Sussex visited a local food distribution centre, handing out food parcels to those who had been displaced or emergency service workers as well. And they happened to be captured by a local news crew. I think it was a Fox news crew. It's part of World Central Kitchen. That's a charity that they have supported for a number of years now, who've been doing this food distribution things. Whether or not it was a photo op, it's really unclear. I don't think we're ever going to get the answer to that. They didn't look like they were made up to look glam for the television. It looked genuine, but of course we know Meghan is an actress as well. So I'll let you make up your own mind on that one. But then we found out very late last night that the Duchess has asked Netflix to postpone her new lifestyle programme, and the Duchess has released a statement actually, and she says, "I'm thankful to my partners at Netflix for supporting me and delaying the launch as we focus on the needs of those impacted by the wildfires in my home state of California." She thinks it would be inappropriate to launch a glossy programme where she's in a $5 million mansion cooking food. It's an 8-part series, and hopefully by that time these fires will be well and truly extinguished.
Well, they're also getting criticism in the US as well from Jason Bateman's sister, that's the actor, saying that, talking about that photo opportunity that people are calling it, saying that Meghan Markle and Harry are no better than ambulance chasers, and they're disaster tourists.
It is difficult, isn't it, for Meghan and Harry trying to find their place in the world. Are they media, entertainment personalities, celebrities, and doing Netflix and all the rest of it, or are they going to be humanitarian workers like perhaps being members of the royal family would be? And I think at the moment they're kind of straddling those two different worlds, aren't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back. It's 2:24. You're watching and listening to Good Afternoon Britain. Now, a rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics has been recalled to prison for breaching his licence conditions. The probation service has now confirmed.
Yes, Jake Fari killed schoolboy Jimmy Mizzen in 2008. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison.
Now, part of the rapper's parole agreement included being barred from entering the Greenwich Borough of London, but in music videos found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victim's family, Fari, who goes by the alias 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf, inside the area he is not allowed into.
Well, you couldn't make it up, could you? But worse than this, worse than being in the area he is forbidden to be in and brazenly filming a music video in that area, here are some of his lyrics and a warning that the following lines might be disturbing to some people watching.
Sharpen up my blade, I've got to keep those necessary. Stay alert and kept it ready, any corner could be deadly.
This is a man who killed a child. More, stuck it on a man and watched him melt like Ben & Jerry's. Those are the lyrics from rapper 10.
OK, well, we're joined now by rapper and drill MC, Drill Minister. Thank you very much, Drill Minister, for coming on. I'm not used to interviewing people wearing balaclava. What's all that about?
It shouldn't have been that different from when you was going through COVID. I'm sure you interviewed people then that had mask on.
So it's for health reasons?
What's the difference?
Well, I suppose
it's just the government's not telling us to wear masks now. It's freedom of choice, you know.
Oh, no, it's a bit intimidating. That's why I ask. Is it supposed to be intimidating?
No, not at all. It's just this is my freedom of speech. This is the way that I articulate my art. You know, Van Gogh, he cut off his ear. You know what I'm trying to say? Everyone's got their way of artistic expression.
Do you care that I find it intimidating, or you don't really care?
No, that shouldn't be intimidation. There shouldn't be any intimidation. If there's intimidation there, then there's chance for growth. You know what I'm trying to say?
OK, let's...
So we could sit down and have a cup of tea and you just be a nice guy.
Oh, you wouldn't have trouble drinking it.
Hey, listen. Hey, this has got holes, man. Listen, I can eat, I can drink, everything. On the front line.
Well, shall we get on to what drill music is? Because I've been looking at a bit of it. I have to say I'm not a fan. Just put my cards on the table. But it does seem overwhelmingly focused on crime and particular knife crimes, stabbing and murder. Why is there so much of that in drill music?
I think you can thank 10 to 15 years of the Tories for that. There wasn't drill music before the Tories came in power, so you do the math.
Well, drill music started in Chicago and moved over to London.
Yeah, it did move from Chicago.
Were the Tories in Chicago too?
In the UK, not the drill that's in the UK. That's definitely not from Chicago.
OK, so what did the Tories do?
That's Birmingham, that's Sunderland, that's Newcastle, that's Liverpool, that's Manchester. That's the whole country, brother. That's definitely not Chicago.
So the Tories have created drill music rather than the creativity of drill rappers?
If you put austerity, you bail out bankers, you've got people with not able to eat. You got Marcus Rashford feeding our children. Do the math.
The banks were, of course, bailed out by Gordon Brown in 2008 and 2009. But moving on, this is, of course, a concern that people have, that particularly violent criminals who've been convicted, sent to prison and are released from prison, then fall back into this sort of drill music scene where they almost glorify the crimes that they've committed. Do you see how that can be, well, incredibly traumatising for some of the victims of the people who have committed these crimes?
I think any victim in any situation, say someone's house gets robbed, the victim, you're going to have to sympathise. In any situation, you're going to have to sympathise. No one's an animal. No one's heartless that doesn't understand that a mother's going to be grieving over their child, or that a child's been attacked, or something's going to happen. Anybody that doesn't think like that isn't human, if you see what I'm trying to come from. No one's non-human. It's a situation where you've got bad environments, you've got things that the country doesn't want to address. We've got problems with two-tier care, Starmer. We've got problems in this country that are not being addressed, and it's easy to point the finger and say, hey, look what's going on over here with these drill rappers. They're the problem, but obviously they're a combination of things. They're a result of things. If people don't say the truth, just like you guys, I guess you're on GB News, you say your version of the truth. People don't say their truth, they're going to explode in other ways. And I would prefer that it's in music and it's not in other ways.
Yeah, I just worry that sometimes it spills over into real life. I mean, if you're rapping about things that have happened and it involves, you know, knife crime, stabbing, whatever else, then...
Let's put it this way. Drill rap is meant to be very, like, shocking, yeah? Look at the children that are going to school today. They're 13, 14, they're going to school today. They're seeing so many Palestinian children blown to bits on their phone every single day. Like, we've become desensitized to, like, murder and violence. It's like, when we really think about it, let's really think about it. We got Lily Phillips, we got all of this prostitution on the TV. Like, the country's in the dumps, bro. Like, to moan about drill rap when we're glorifying a woman.
I want to talk specifically about drill rap and what it actually is, because I've been reading that there is a common refrain in drill rap lyrics where the names of individuals are replaced with the word shh. And the reason that lyrics do that very often is because those words, those lyrics would be incriminating to, you know, authorities looking at the lyrics because they explain and describe actual crimes that have been committed, people that have been killed, people that have been stabbed. Those names written into the lyrics and commonly replaced with the word shh. That does show, does it not, that drill music is often glorifying violent crimes that have taken place in the real world.
It's happening in the real world every single day, if you see what I'm trying to say. Like, what's killed more people, drill rap or COVID?
Yeah, you're saying it reflects reality. It reflects reality.
Like, the reality of what we're living.
That's what you're saying. I worry that it also glorifies that, makes it cool, makes it something for younger boys to...
The thing that I fear is the same reason where you got to draw a line. You guys are right. Nobody can be coming out here naming somebody they've murdered. This is mad. This is like, no one's... That's craziness. You know what I'm trying to say? That's mad on anybody's situation. But what we've got to realize is that we're living in a country where right now it's a broken Britain. This is a result of it. I'm not saying that drill music is the answer to the broken Britain. I'm not saying that it is the most negative thing of the broken Britain. But once we address the broken Britain part of it first, then we could start moving on to why are these kids into this type of madness? Why is this going on our streets? How can we fix it? What are the solutions? There's a lot of people are just going to throw aspersion. Everybody wants to cuss. Everybody wants to blame the youth. But they forget they was a youth, stealing from a shop one day or doing a little bit of an asshole behavior. But this has gone beyond that now. What's happening now?
Not everyone behaves like that, to be fair. But Drill Minister, you put your points across. You put your points across. Rapper and drill MC, Drill Minister, thank you very much. Maybe one day we'll see your face.
Oh, bam!
Well, goodness me, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come on today's programme. Indeed, what is going on with the triple lock? Different politicians saying different things about your pension. That next.
Hello, at 2:33, I'm Will Hollis. Some breaking news for you in this hour. A man who attempted to murder an asylum seeker has now had his sentence confirmed at Woolwich Crown Court. Callum Parslow has been sentenced to life with minimum term of 22 years and 8 months in prison. The Nazi-obsessed terrorist stabbed an asylum seeker in the chest at a Worcestershire hotel. In other news, the Israeli Security Cabinet has recommended approving the Gaza ceasefire and hostage return deal ahead of a full cabinet meeting expected later today. A statement from the Prime Minister Netanyahu's office has said. Hamas is expected to release the first hostages under a Gaza ceasefire deal on Sunday. More than 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict, which started in October 2023, when Hamas-led militants killed 1,400 Israelis and took 200 people hostage. As you were just hearing, a rapper accused of glorifying murder in his lyrics is on his way back to prison. Jake Fari killed schoolboy Jimmy Mazen and in 2008 was sentenced to 14 years in jail. The probation service says Fari has been recalled for breaching his licence conditions. Part of the rapper's parole agreement includes being barred from entering Greenwich Borough of London, but in music videos found by the Sun newspaper and watched by his victim's family, Fari, who goes by the alias 10, was filmed in front of Canary Wharf inside the area. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy said the BBC should reflect on the decision to showcase the drill rapper who was promoted on their One Extra radio station. In other news, a defence and security deal with Poland will bring closer collaboration between the UK and its eastern ally. The Prime Minister continues his visit to Europe, promising to take Britain's partnership with Poland to the next level. Meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the pair are expected to discuss how the countries can combat people smuggling gangs and Russian aggression. The FTSE 100 has hit a new record high as traders bet on a cut to interest rates. Buoyed on by lowering inflation and declining retail sales, the FTSE 100 jumped to 8,492.06. Rachel Reeves has insisted she is here for the long haul in a fight back following criticism of her response to financial market turbulence. And your last one for now, the funeral of Radio 2 presenter Johnny Walker has taken place. Alongside colleagues and musicians, including Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant and Jeremy Vine, family and friends said goodbye to the DJ. Walker died aged 79 in December, with his death being announced on New Year's Eve by Bob Harris, who took over the veteran DJ's Sounds of the 70s show in November. Well, those are your latest headlines. Tatiana Sanchez will be here in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Across some parts of Scotland today, there will be some rain and some strong winds, but for most, it's looking largely cloudy, but often dry. That's because we are still heavily under the influence of high pressure just to the southeast of us. The further away from this high you are, the greater chance you have of some unsettled weather. So yes, some outbreaks of rain pushing across parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too, and here it's going to be quite blustery, but elsewhere, a largely cloudy picture, limited sunnier breaks across perhaps parts of Northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe Northern Scotland seeing some sunshine, but for most it's pretty cloudy. And a north-south split when it comes to temperatures. Cold towards the south. Further north, it's actually going to be pretty mild. For some, temperatures could just about get into the mid-teens Celsius, particularly where we have any breaks in the cloud towards the north-northeast of Scotland. We will keep with some breaks as we go through towards this evening, towards the far northeast, but it is also looking pretty cloudy, a bit wet and blustery still further west across parts of Scotland. Largely cloudy across parts of Northern Ireland and much of Northern England, with a few breaks in the cloud perhaps. Staying mostly dry, just the odd spot of drizzly rain for more central southern parts of England and Wales, but staying cloudy as well. Lots more cloud to come as we go overnight. Some clearer skies, though, across northern parts of Scotland, and here it is likely to turn a bit chilly, perhaps a touch of frost, and even elsewhere across southern areas, because we have quite cold air across us at the moment. Even though we have that blanket of cloud, it is going to be a relatively cold night. There could be a few pockets of frost, perhaps, particularly over higher ground. Through tomorrow then, another cloudy start to the day for many, perhaps a greater chance of seeing some sunshine across parts of northern England, Wales, even into the southwest of England, seeing some sunshine, and further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland, some sunshine too. Otherwise, a lot of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain, and perhaps even a few snow grains in places, especially towards the southeast.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Russell Holding. In East Yorkshire, the A165 is blocked by an accident on Holderness Road in Hull, causing delays. In Northamptonshire on the A14, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down between junctions 12 and 13 towards Thrapston, causing queues. In Cambridgeshire, the A428 is partly blocked each way by an accident between Caxton, Gibbet and Elterslie, causing queues heading away from Cambridge from Camborne. In Carmarthenshire, the A48 is closed each way between Portherreed and Llanfarog after an accident, causing delays towards and away from Carmarthen. In Rhondda Cynon Taff, the Mardy Mountain Lincoln Road is blocked where a lorry is jackknifed between Aberdare and Mardy, causing delays. In London, the Blackwall Tunnel's closed northbound because of a breakdown with queues in the Woolwich Road flyover. On the M23 in West Sussex, there's a lane closed on the southbound exit at junction 10 at Crawley after an accident. And in Cornwall, the A374 is closed after an accident at Polbathic.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 to 3, and Kemi Badenoch has confirmed the Conservatives may be looking to change their position on the pension triple lock, all as part of their new rebuilding programme.
Yes, so the Conservative leader says her party will begin means testing the policies.
Or explore that.
Well, explore that, yes. This is a bit unfair. We'll show you the clip and you can, see what you make of it. We've got to give something to the next generation. What are we leaving them with?
Well, she's also put out a statement on Twitter clarifying her view on the topic, saying Labour punished poor pensioners, snatching away winter fuel payments due to poor means testing. We need better mechanisms, not proxies like pension credit or free school meals. So why are Labour, Reform, Lib Dems pretending we're cancelling the triple lock?
OK, well, why don't we watch the little clip of Kemi?
Now, I'm not talking about being mean to pensioners and taking away their money, because I know we don't want to do that, but there are some people that get the pension or get the triple lock applied to it who do not need it. So shouldn't we look at that and perhaps using that money to help build more houses or help young people to become homeowners?
So that's exactly the sort of thing that the policy work we're going to be doing will look at. I have always said that we don't do means testing.
We're going to look at the triple lock.
No, we're going to look at means testing. Means testing is something which we don't do properly here.
So was she talking about getting rid of the triple lock?
Ian Dale there, excellent broadcaster he is, he said, are you talking about means testing the triple lock? Are you talking about the triple lock? Kemi Badenoch, to my ears, said, no, we're talking about means testing.
Yeah, she wants to look at all of it. Well, anyway, let's bring in our political editor, Christopher Hope, see what he makes of it. Christopher, what did you make of that exchange? Has the media been fair to Kemi Badenoch on this one?
Yeah. I think she was trying to talk about means testing. I think she's trying to look back at the issue of the winter fuel payment, why that went universally to 10 million pensioners regardless of wealth. And that's what she's trying to say. But the fact she's issuing two tweets on social media now, a half a day later, or more than half a day later, shows that she hasn't quite got this one right, hasn't landed in the right way. Number 10, of course, are piling in. They're saying that the PM, Keir Starmer, is committed to the triple lock and the principle of people receiving a state pension based on their contributions over their lifetime, regardless of wealth. Now, she should look at it. So she is looking here, I think, at means testing and why means testing is a bit of a clunky way of doing it. They're trying to means test the winter fuel payment based on the pensioner credits, and I think she's saying that's a bit of a strange way of doing it. It's a different way of doing it, is what she's trying to get towards. Again, we go back to the heart of this problem with Kemi Badenoch, and I asked her this question in a press conference yesterday, that with no actual policies, people are grasping for ideas that she might try and do. She's asking us to wait quite a long time until she comes out with policies. In the meantime, into that void comes Nigel Farage as the voice of the right-wing politics at the moment, and that's part of the problem. I think she's trying to say, I mean this, I don't mean that. We had the same problem during the Tory party conference. She talked then, didn't she, about asked whether maternity pay was the right level. Then she said, or appeared to say, that maternity pay is excessive. Now, it had gone too far. Again, she walked back from that expression, but that took a couple of posts on social media and a clip for a news outlet. But we were warned by Kemi Badenoch when she became leader, she'd say things that would then, in her words, be misinterpreted by her critics or by the media. She's saying that again today, criticising her critics and probably the media for the same thing. And this is the nature of this new leader. She is finding her way. She's finding a way to talk about her ideas, but it is getting her in a bit of trouble, fairly or unfairly.
No, it does seem to be something that Kemi Badenoch does do rather often. She'll have a sort of meandering answer to a question and speak perhaps more theoretically than in clear policy terms, or very often, I think this happened at Conservative Party conference as well, talking about maternity pay. And the interviewer will say something, but Kemi Badenoch's already halfway through her thoughts, and two different people can be listening to the same conversation and come away with two completely different interpretations of what just happened.
Yeah. I think when she speaks, when you hear the whole entirety of what she's saying, you know what she means. So on my podcast in the summer, she talked about learning to be working class in McDonald's, and I knew what she meant. She was saying she was learning about how to work in the UK, and she understood what working class people were feeling. If you listen to the context of what she's saying over 2 minutes, you understand what she means. But when you clip it very tightly, as her critics did, it was used to criticise her for saying about being working class and learning to be working class. And it was picked up indeed by Keir Starmer in that speech in Pinewood Studios before Christmas. So her critics are using things she says slightly out of context to hurt her. That's part of the problem. That's how she is, though. She answers things straightly and correctly. Or I would say, if you've been critical of the Tory party, they could have clarified what she meant sooner than now. I mean, if she'd issuing this tweet or these messages last night may have stopped it getting this idea out. So because right now it's out there on social media that she wants to cut.
Chopper, I'm being told we need to wrap up.
The triple lock.
I do want to get in this tiny question, if we can be really brief about it. What's going on with beavers in this country? Are they being released or not?
The Natural England wants to release them. It's a policy going back to Boris Johnson's time in government. There are reports in The Guardian that the government wanted to delay it happening because they were concerned that there was a Tory legacy to the scheme. Number 10 confirmed this lunchtime that they are considering beaver release in Natural England, and a source adds for us, we don't think beavers are Tories. That in itself has started a whole debate on whether beavers are Tories and have Tory characteristics. They believe in the family. They believe in well, not flooding the land, but in terms of building their own homes, and so it goes on.
Oh, amazing! Well, yeah, I'm keen to see what GB viewers think. Are beavers Tory or not? gbnews.com/. Your say.
There's always a man there's always a man or a woman dressed up as a beaver outside the Department of Environment and Rural
often
Affairs.
Is, or a badger.
Oh, that's a badger.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks to Chopper for that marvellous roundup. We're going to have a look at the travel weather now. See you in a second.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you or someone you know is looking for winter sun over the next few days, it will be breezy across much of the Med with some wet weather for Italy, but a lot of fine weather for Portugal and Spain, at least on Saturday. We're going to see sunny skies, a few drops of rain there for Gibraltar, but this system, named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is going to bring some very wet and windy weather through Sardinia, Sicily and much of Italy. That moves away through next week and it turns more unsettled in Spain.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Aaron McLean, the goal machine here, used to play for Peterborough United. You bagged loads of goals for them back in the day. But I've got a bone to pick with you, young man. You scored at the City ground against Nottingham Forest for, was it Hull City?
For Hull City, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, that was my job, unfortunately. I must say, that was actually one of my favourite goals.
Was it really?
Because I remember, obviously, playing at the City ground, unbelievable stadium, historic.
It is great.
So, and we beat you 1-0.
OK, no need to rubbish it. These sports clubs, whether it's football or rugby or whatever, should offer two alternatives, either a professional footballer, or if you don't quite make it, you can still go and play football at a lower level, but have a career as well, maybe be an electrician or a plumber.
100%. You know, listen, I've had multiple conversations with various different people, whether it's the PFA or whether it's clubs. Even players who do have careers, you know, there's so many that don't make it and don't quite make it to the level or only play at a lower level. There's so many that do have long careers, but once you come to the end of that, you've spent, you know, for me, I spent 20 years as a professional footballer. Once I finished playing, what do you then do for the rest of your life? You know, at 35, once you retire, you still have to have a purpose in life. Yeah. But I'd almost be starting from ground zero. I'm fortunate that I went into coaching and then went into the media.
That's good.
But for every one of me, there's hundreds that don't. And I've got so many friends who, I've got to say, you know, have really, really struggled on the, you know, mental health side.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually, because you go from, like, playing in stadiums, big stadiums, small stadiums, crowds, singing your name, and all that sort of stuff, that adulation, the buzz of winning games, and, you know, the downs of losing games, and you go from that to sort of nothing when you finish. I mean, that's a big come down area.
It's a huge come down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 10 to 3 and be prepared. Why? The government is reportedly preparing to test the National Emergency Alert System at some point this year.
Yeah, I remember I was on air when it went off last time. It was quite exciting. 87 million phones around the country will get a special message through to them, which is supposed to warn them of a national emergency, like a flood, storm.
Or a terror attack.
Yeah, terror attack.
But there's no reason to panic this time, because the alert being sent out is just to check whether the system is still working.
OK, well, joining us now is political commentator Anna McGovern. Anna, I noted that in an article about this, Richard Tice had given his opinion off of reform, and he said that this is the nanny state gone mad. Thoughts?
I think so, and also what I would wonder is what the government's going to constitute as an emergency this time. So emergency alerts were being spoken about around the time of the COVID pandemic, which was also constituted as emergency for every single person to go and get their vaccines. You can get your vaccine passport, go back into, join back society. And there's been a lot of concern from people, for example, like elderly people getting these alerts. So this is causing panic with them. And domestic abuse campaigners have come out really furious about this, saying if someone's in a domestically abusive relationship, they have a secret phone for their safety. What happens if that rings and then that puts them in danger? So there's been a lot of outrage about this online.
I suppose the counterpoint to that is we've had this system. When was the last time these all went off? A couple of years ago. A year ago or two. It hasn't gone off in the meantime. Clearly the government's not trigger happy with this system. It would have to be something pretty darn scary for these to go off in anything other than a test.
Well, then I would ask, what will the government constitute as an emergency? Will it be another pandemic? Will they be telling us to stay at home because there's a nasty cold going about? And that's what I question, and I think that's a lot of people are calling this the nanny state is coming back. The government's still trying to take control of our lives. And a lot of people now, they're actually instructed, they're telling others, this is how you can turn off your emergency alerts for your settings so you don't get this alarm at all.
Yeah, it's a little bit intrusive, isn't it? I mean, particularly as we rarely have an emergency that's going to be affecting the whole country. Yet we're testing it in the whole country. And then we've had sort of floods and things and they didn't go off. So it is a bit, what is this for?
That's exactly what I'm questioning. And if it's not worked before, in cases where there's been an like for a flood, for example, or something like that, what's it going to do this time?
Well, we've seen the big fires in California. If, God forbid, there was a large fire in a city or a town in the UK, I mean, this would be a fairly useful way to alert people.
Yeah, but we had floods and it didn't go off. We had massive floods across the country, Midlands and the North.
Imminent danger.
Well, I think it was quite imminent to the people there.
Well, possibly something like that. But then again, I would wonder with the government, what else would be an emergency? Obviously, that would be something that would genuinely be an emergency because people could die from a fire. But then I would question what else. Would staying at home, being locked down, telling the public, you know, you've got to stay in your house, you can't leave. Remember the one walk a day rule we were told a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it's always going to err on the cautious side, isn't it? Anna McGovern, thank you very much indeed for rounding up the show this afternoon.
Yes, this is Good Afternoon Britain. Don't go anywhere because the one and only Martin Daubney is next.
Have a lovely weekend.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Across some parts of Scotland today, there will be some rain and some strong winds, but for most, it's looking largely cloudy, but often dry. That's because we are still heavily under the influence of high pressure just to the southeast of us. The further away from this high you are, the greater chance you have of some unsettled weather. So yeah, some outbreaks of rain pushing across parts of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too, and here it's going to be quite blustery, but elsewhere, a largely cloudy picture. Limited sunnier breaks across perhaps parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe northern Scotland seeing some sunshine, but for most it's pretty cloudy. And a north-south split when it comes to temperatures. Cold towards the south, further north it's actually going to be pretty mild. For some, temperatures could just about get into the mid-teens Celsius, particularly where we have any breaks in the cloud towards the north-northeast of Scotland. We will keep with some breaks as we go through towards this evening, towards the far northeast, but it is also looking pretty cloudy, a bit wet and blustery still further west across parts of Scotland. Largely cloudy across parts of Northern Ireland and much of northern England, with a few breaks in the cloud perhaps. Staying mostly dry, just the odd spot of drizzly rain for more central southern parts of England and Wales, but staying cloudy as well. Lots more cloud to come as we go overnight. Some clearer skies, though, across northern parts of Scotland, and here it is likely to turn a bit chilly, perhaps a touch of frost, and even elsewhere across southern areas, because we have quite cold air across us at the moment. Even though we have that blanket of cloud, it is going to be a relatively cold night. There could be a few pockets of frost, perhaps, particularly over higher ground. Through tomorrow then, another cloudy start to the day for many, perhaps a greater chance of seeing some sunshine across parts of northern England, Wales, even into the southwest of England, seeing some sunshine, and further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland, some sunshine too. Otherwise, a lot of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain, and perhaps even a few snow grains in places, especially towards the southeast.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it, it happens to people like me.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Friday. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Labour's proposal for just 5 locally led rape gang inquiries has been blasted as a disgraceful whitewash by survivors and campaigners. And with 73% of all voters demanding a full national inquiry, it is scandal now simply too big for the Labour Party to ignore. And after the mother of murdered Jimmy Mizzen appeared on GB News yesterday, the drill rapper who murdered her son Jimmy has been sent back to jail. But the BBC, who promoted this thug's sick music, has still not apologised. And last night, Kemi Badenoch appeared to suggest that the Tories might remove the pension's triple lock and means test it. She blasted back that was fake news, but I'll be joined today by a furious pensions campaigner who has slammed this as a betrayal of all of those who paid in for their whole lives. And hundreds of tractors are parked up outside British supermarkets today in a show of force called The Final Straw. Do you get it? Will supermarkets support British farmers, or will they sit on the fence and risk future blockades and perhaps even food shortages? I'll speak to farmers on the front line of today's National Action Day. And on today's show, I'm delighted to say I'll be joined in the studio by the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick. I'll get his thoughts on the scandal of the killer rapper who was promoted by the BBC, Labour's proposals to compensate Jerry Adams, plus the rape gangs inquiries, and also that's hoo-ha on the triple lock. You'll not want to miss it. That's all coming on today's show. Welcome to the show. Always an absolute pleasure to have your company. So Robert Jenrick is a gentleman who a lot of people watching this show would have liked to have been the Conservative leader. Let's admit it. Well, he's in the studio today. He's right here. In fact, delighted to say Robert Jenrick joins me in the studio. We're going to have an expansive conversation. Very, very much looking forward to that. If you want to ask him a question, get in touch. Keep it clean. It's gbnews.com/your say. But now here's your headlines, and it's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories. A Nazi-obsessed man who tried to stab an asylum seeker to death has been jailed. Callum Parslow was handed a life sentence and will serve a minimum of 22 years and 8 months in prison after he attacked a man at a hotel in Worcestershire in April last year as a protest against small boat crossings. The